Chapter 3648. After Mu Yin entered the Ning family, she was warmly received by the Ning family. A sumptuous banquet, friendly smiling faces, and luxurious gifts were given to her one after another. Mu Yin was simply overwhelmed by this. But the dishes on the banquet were just as Ning Yu said, not vegetables or fruits. They were bland and tasteless, boiled and steamed. The goal was to maintain the original nutrition of the spirit herbs and immortal medicines. However, the smell was so faint that it could even be compared to a bird smell. Mu Yin only ate 2 mouthfuls, and her interest waned. While drinking the fruit wine in her hand, her gaze swept across everyone present. The Ning family's population composition was unimaginably simple. According to Ning Fuxing, apart from the ancestor Ning Kunshin, who was in seclusion and would only come out after 3 days, apart from the 2 elders who were rarely seen, the rest of the Ning family were already here. But even so, he only managed to sit at 1 table. The Ning family's ancestor Ning Kunshin only had 1 son, Ning Xianting, but he passed away thousands of years ago. Ning Xianting only left a son and a daughter. The daughter passed away early, and the son's talent was average. After marrying and having children, he left 3 sons. They were Ning Fuxing, the current head of the Ning family, and Mu Yan's grandfather, as well as the Ning family's 2 shattering heaven stage elders, Ning Jiangwen and Ning Jinwu. Ning Jiangwen and Ning Jinwu were a pair of twins with extremely high talent. In a short few hundred years, they had already reached shattering heaven stage primary level. Both of them had wives and had given birth to daughters. But what was sad was that neither of their daughters were able to survive. Ning Jiangwen's daughter gave birth to a boy 1,000 years ago and died of illness. And Ning Jinwu's daughter also died a few hundred years ago due to injuries. In the Ning family's 5th generation, there was only Mu Yan's grandfather Ning Fuxing's 2nd son, Ning Zhongbai, and Ning Jiangwen's wife's posthumous son, Ning Zhongye. And Mu Yan, Ning Yu, and Ning Su all belonged to the Ning family's 6th generation. Apart from these first sons and daughters, at the table, Mu Yan also saw the Ning family's concubine children. But compared to the concubine children, these concubine children were obviously much more humble and timid. Occasionally, they would sneak a glance at Mu Yan and immediately lower their heads in panic, not daring to look at her. The history and genealogy of the Ning family were told to Mu Yan by Ning Zhongye's wife, Hua Yuhua. She was an enthusiastic woman who looked to be in her early 30s. She was beautiful and hearty, and the Ning family's requirement was that she didn't talk while eating or sleep. But she keeps pulling Mayan down and muttering incessantly. He was just short of counting all the ancestors of the Ning family in detail. Until she mentioned Ning Su. Ning Zhongye, who was sitting quietly at the side, suddenly gave her a backhand slap to stop her from speaking. Hua Yuhua covered her face with her hands. Her eyes were filled with tears, and she did not dare to speak again. Ning Zhongye revealed an apologetic expression towards Mu Yan. Mu Yan, please don't take offense. Your Aunt Yuhua has always been like this. Don't lower yourself to her level. Mayan's gaze sweeps over everyone at the table, looking pensive. However, he only smiled calmly and stood up. Grandfather, uncles, I'm full. The journey has been tiring, and I'm exhausted. Let's go back and rest. Saying that, she turned her gaze to Ning Fuxing. Ning Fuxing's face, which was just cold and stern just a moment ago, immediately revealed a somewhat stiff and benevolent smile. Chapter 3649. Mu Yan, you've had a hard journey. You should have a good rest. Your mother's things, grandfather will have someone send them to your room in a moment. But you shouldn't think of her too much. Rest well, conserve your energy, understand? Mu Yan nods obediently. Ning Fuxing then summons the maids and orders them to bring them to Mu Yan. At the same time, his sharp gaze sweeps over all the Ning family members present, coldly warning, Yin'er is only staying in my Ning family for a while. She is the most important guest of the Ning family. Everyone must be respectful to Yin'er. Do you hear me? Yes, we understand, clan leader. A sumptuous banquet ends in a strange silence. Mu Yan is sent to the best wing of the Ning family. As soon as she enters the room, Mu Yin immediately sticks talismans on the door and windows to prevent anyone from approaching and peeping. Qi Huang, how is it? What do you think is strange about the Ning family? The red-clothed youth in the space has a strange expression. You should ask what is not strange about the Ning family. Yes, the Ning family is too strange. The entire Ning family is built underground, where the sun never shines. It must be said that it's safe underground. But the problem is that with the Ning family's current cultivation, there's almost no one on the entire floating island that can pose a threat to them. Who are they guarding against when they build such a fortress? And what's even stranger is the Ning family's population structure. It's too simple. The Ning family has already settled on the floating island for 2,000 years. The earliest ancestor, Ning Kunshin, has yet to pass away. But there are only so few people in such a big Ning family. And they clearly have such great ability, but they have to live in such a place. Would the Ning family really not feel resentment and unwillingness? There's also Ning Su. When Hua Yuhua mentioned Ning Su before, the faces of Ning Fuxing and the others are even uglier than when his mother, Ning Yinxin, was mentioned. Ning Zhongye even directly slapped Hua Yuhua in front of this outsider, and Ning Su was killed by him on the road of cultivation. It's reasonable to say that he hasn't returned to the Ning family for a long time, but none of these people mentioned it. It's like no one in the Ning family cares about Ning Su's life or death. All of this is too unimaginable. Seven Brilliance snorted coldly. The strangest thing is that the entire Ning clan is under surveillance. No matter which corner of the Ning family you are in, even if it is the most private bathroom or bedroom, the person controlling the array can clearly see your every move. Mayan's brows sink, and she slightly lowers her eyes. Yes, this was what she discovered as soon as she entered the Ning family. He was supposed to be at home that he could rely on the most, but his actions were being monitored at all times. The purpose of this action was simply incomprehensible. Who was the person monitoring this house? Someone knocked on the door. A servant girl and a manservant carried a wooden box in, and respectfully said to Mu Yin, "Miss Mu Yin, these are the things that the patriarch asked us to deliver to you. Please take a look." Mu Yin knew that these belonged to Ning Yinxin. She opened the box and saw that it was full of clothes and jewelry. It was obvious that it was quite old, but it was well maintained. It could be seen how diligent the person who took care of these things usually was. Mu Yin gently rummaged through the clothes in the box, her expression somewhat absent-minded. Ning Yinxin seemed to be the same as her. They both preferred plain and cold colors. Chapter 3650. What kind of person was her biological mother? In her previous life, she didn't even know there was such a person. Now she knows, and step by step, she's getting closer and closer to her mother, to her origins. Mu Yin suddenly says, "Qi Huang, I'm going to investigate the Ning family tonight. Help me keep an eye out and see if you can find any clues about my mother." Qi Huang makes an O sound and casually agrees. As for the surveillance array, neither Mu Yin nor Qi Huang cares about it. If she can't even block this little surveillance array, then she's a Shun musician descendant in vain. Knock, knock, knock. There's another knock on the door. Mu Yin shows a puzzled expression because the one standing outside is Ning Zhongbai, Ning Yu's father. At the banquet just now, Ning Zhongbai didn't say a word to her. He didn't even look at her. It's like he doesn't know her at all. Mu Yin opens the door and welcomes him in. Ning Zhongbai is a fair-skinned, handsome, and gentle man. The Ning family's eyebrows are somewhat similar. The corners of his eyes are raised, flirtatious, and fierce. Even Mu Yan's own peach blossom eyes are also smiling and charming, cold and indifferent like an arrow or frost, breathtaking. But Ning Zhongbai is different. His eyes always seem to carry a bit of melancholy and pity, causing him to lose his aggressive aura, leaving only gentleness and tolerance. As soon as Ning Zhongbai enters, his eyes freeze on Mu Yin, looking her up and down several times. The rims of his eyes slowly turn red. I really didn't expect that Yinxin still has a child in this world. This is really, really good, really good. Mu Yin can feel the joy and excitement from the man in front of her. The way he looks at her is different from the other Ning family members. It's really the way he looks at a loved one that was lost and regained, not mixed with any calculation or exploitation. Mu Yin took a step forward and whispered, "Uncle, can you tell me what happened back then?" Hearing Mu Yin call him uncle, Ning Zhongbai's whole body quivers, tears almost rolling down from his eyes. But when he hears Mu Yan's question, a trace of panic flits across his face. He subconsciously glanced at his surroundings. He forced a smile and said, 20 years ago, your mother was suddenly brought back from the Xiuxian continent by Xiao Su. Not long after, a man found a Ning family and turned the Ning family upside down. Xiao Su wanted to kill that man, and your mother fought him to the death. In the end, Big Brother had no choice but to let them go. From then on, I never heard any news about you or your mother. I think that man should be your father, right? Mu Yin slightly frowns. What Ning Zhongbai said was exactly the same as Ning Fuxing. But why did fear and panic flash across Ning Zhongbai's face just now? What he said was a lie, but because of the Ning family's grand array, he didn't dare to tell her the truth. I've come this time to give you this blood vein bell. Ning Zhongbai smiled and took out a bell from his bosom, handing it to Mu Yin. Every member of the Ning family has to wear a blood pattern bell. Only in this way can they get the blessing of the ancestors, expel the barren impurities in their bodies, and advance quickly. Of course, the most important thing was that there was a powerful defensive formation at the entrance of the Ning clan. If you don't wear the blood vein bell, you can't go in and out as you wish. Saying that, he didn't wait for Mu Yin to speak. Ning Zhongbai personally tied the blood vein bell to Mu Yin's waist. Chapter 36:51. Ning Zhongbai's voice is slightly hoarse. Remember, you must wear this blood vein bell firmly. Don't drop it. Mu Yin meets his gaze without blinking, and subconsciously nods as he solemnly looks at her. Ning Zhongbai's face shows a shallow smile. He reaches out and touches Mu Yan's head, his voice soft. Good child, Yin Xian will be very happy to see you grow up so well. Mu Yin wants to ask him, where's Ning Yu now? Will she be punished? Do they know about Ning Su's death? But Ning Zhongbai doesn't give her this opportunity. After saying this, he hurriedly leaves. It's like there's something chasing behind him. In the dead of night, the already quiet Ning family is even quieter now. Tisk, why do I feel like I'm locked in a tomb? The Ning family that I'm in contact with now, are they all ghost zombies? Mu Yin can't help but complain as she cautiously moves forward. To be honest, the Ning family's underground palace is still very splendid. The foundation is dug very, very deep. It makes the ceiling of the entire palace seem very high. The ceiling is also inlaid with illumination stones that change regularly. It's bright and dazzling during the day, and twinkling with stars at night. There are ponds, streams, and hot springs formed by underground water in the palace. There are also flowers, trees, and ornamental birds and beasts that are suitable for survival in the underground environment. Especially walking in this underground palace at night, you almost feel like you're walking under the starry sky, among the pavilions. But an illusion is an illusion after all, and it can't be compared with the real sunlight in the night sky. There are clearly birds singing and flowers fragrant, but the entire palace is filled with a kind of decadent and oppressive smell. Qi Huang suddenly exclaims, Jun Mu Yin, northeast ahead. Mu Yin nods. You also sensed it. The center of the whole array is there. Qi Huang slightly frowns and shakes his head. I seem to smell a familiar and nauseating smell. But it seems that it's not just nauseating. There's also an inexplicable attraction. There's suddenly a voice in his mind telling him that there's something that belongs to you. Get it, and you can become stronger. Qi Huang tightly frowns and grits his teeth. He grabs the little chick and rubs it. Bah, such a stinky, disgusting smell. What good thing can it be? I won't eat it. I won't eat it even if I die. Kijiji. Brother Red Pants, what you doing? You messed up Huang Huang's hair. The little chick flapped its wings and claws to resist. In the end, after meeting Seven Brilliance's sinister gaze, he immediately cowered. She obediently placed her little head in his palm. Sob, 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 woof, woof, woof. Brother Red Pants, you can rub me if you want, as long as you don't make Huang Huang bald. Mu Yin quickly arrived at the location of the mysterious array core. Soon, an old, yellowed stone tablet appeared in front of him. 3 words were written on it: Meteor Pool. In front of the stone tablet was a thick fog. He could vaguely see a tall wall. Mu Yin carefully spreads out her divine sense, wanting to find out what's inside. However, as soon as his divine sense reached the position of the thick fog, it was blocked by an invisible barrier. It seemed that if he wanted to know what was here, he could only go in and take a look. Mu Yin looked around and found that there was no one around, so she quickly crossed the stone tablet and stepped inside. However, at this moment, swoosh, swoosh. Chapter 36:52. 2 cold lights whistled one after the other, wrapped in the momentum of 1,000 caddies. Mu Yin was caught off guard and jumped in fright. She hurriedly jumped and dodged. At the same time, the 7 absolute swords were unsheathed. With a clang, a wave of intense numbness and pain came from her arm, causing her to almost moan out loud. And the attack from the opposite side had no intention of stopping. Papa! The 3rd and 4th whips attacked again. Mu Yin was about to be hit. The blood vein bell on her waist suddenly vibrated violently, emitting a dazzling red light. A soft cry came from behind the thick fog. The whip that had already arrived in front of Mayan trembles, and like a spirit snake, it retracts. Then 2 tall and thin figures came out from behind the thick fog. They looked to be in their 50s or 60s, with slender figures and gray hair. The strangest thing was that the 2 looked almost the same. The old man on the left glanced at Mu Yin, then at the blood vein bell on her waist, and frowned. How come I don't remember a junior like you in the Ning family? Since you were the blood vein bell, you should know that the Lu Miao Pond is a forbidden area. How can you wander around it well? The old man on the right stared at Mu Yin for a long time, and suddenly said, Big brother, look at her. Doesn't she look like Yin Exian? The old man on the left suddenly thought of something. You are the little girl that 3rd brother brought back, Yin Exian's daughter? Mu Yin smiled slightly and cupped her hands towards the 2. Hello, elders. I am Jun Mu Yin. The 2 people in front of her were obviously the only 2 heaven-breaking realm elders of the Ning family. The twins Ning Jiangwen and Ning Jinwu. She didn't see them at the previous banquet. Hua Yuhua only said that the 2 elders were in seclusion all year round, and didn't even see their family members, let alone outsiders. Now it seemed, the 2 were not in seclusion, but guarding the forbidden area of the Ning family. But why was the Lu Miao Pond the forbidden area of the Ning family? What was hidden inside? Although she was full of doubts, Mu Yin still showed a perturbed and confused expression of a young girl. I came to the Ning family for the first time today, and couldn't sleep at night, so I wanted to walk around. Elders, can I come here? Ning Jiangwen and Ning Jinwu heaved a sigh of relief and relaxed their vigilance. Ning Jiangwen said in a gentle tone, Little girl, you've just arrived at the Ning family, so it's normal that you don't know the rules here. You could go anywhere in the Ning family's underground palace, including the Ning family's treasury on the west side. But only the flowing goblet pond was forbidden to anyone. Trespassers will be killed without mercy. Remember this clearly in the future. Mu Yin nodded repeatedly, and under the watchful eyes of Ning Jiangwen and Ning Jinwu, she carefully retreated, until she can no longer feel the line of sight and the probing of divine sense. Mu Yin finally lets out a long sigh of relief. Qi Huang said disdainfully, Too useless. 2 heaven-shattering tier-old things are enough to scare you into this state. Hee. Mu Yin sneers, If you're amazing, then go and deal with them for me. Qi Huang was so depressed that he stopped talking. If he could get out of the Tian Mo Chin space and not be afraid of exposing his whereabouts, would he not be able to deal with those 2 wastes of trash? The flowing noodle pond could no longer be explored. But Mayan is also unwilling to go back like this. She remembers what Ning Jiangwen said, that she could even go to the Ning family's treasury on the west side as she pleased. Mu Yin hooked up her lips, and her figure flashed, heading towards the west side. Huh, this is the Ning family's treasury? Chapter 36:53. All the way to the west, Mu Yin saw ordinary courtyards and rockery scenery on both sides. After flying for a full quarter of an hour, she finally reached the end. But the scene she saw made Mu Yin somewhat unable to come back to her senses. Because what appeared in front of her was neither a tightly guarded warehouse nor a magnificent palace. Instead, it was a dozen or so caves standing side by side. That's right, it was the most ordinary kind, without any decoration or repair, just the kind of caves that were dug into the stone walls. And in front of these caves, there wasn't even a stone to block the door. Is the Ning family too poor, or do they not care about treasures? Mu Yin walked into the first cave, and sure enough, she found piles and piles of crystals inside. Each piece was a high-grade crystal, and there was even a small pile of obsidian crystals. Mu Yin's eyes were almost blinded by the light. She went to the second and third cave. She saw all kinds of elixirs and magic treasures piled up inside. The total amount of reserves was even greater than 10 Liberty Cities put together. Mu Yin, who had to support a lot of people all the time, was so poor that her eyes were about to stare blankly when she saw this. The Ning family was really too rich. So many treasures were casually thrown in the cave. They didn't even set up a concealment defensive array. Were they really not worried that someone would steal it? After reluctantly looking at the heavenly treasures in front of her for a few times, Mu Yin retreated and came to the fourth cave. As soon as she entered this cave, Mu Yin found that it was completely different from the previous two. This cave was very long, winding, and she couldn't see the bottom from the outside. And the deeper she went, the colder she felt. In the end, it was almost to the point that she couldn't stay in this cave if she didn't circulate her spiritual power to resist. Mu Yin didn't know how long she had walked, but the long and narrow tunnel finally opened up. In front of her appeared a wide cave covered with ice and snow. In the middle of the cave was an ice coffin, and she could vaguely see a person lying inside. Mu Yin took a few steps forward and came to the ice coffin. She pressed her palm on the top of the ice coffin and gently wiped away the frost on it. The whole ice coffin was made very crystal clear. The falling frost was wiped away, and the appearance of the person in the ice coffin was clearly displayed in front of Mu Yin. What the? How is this possible? The moment she sees the people in the ice coffins, Mu Yin suddenly widens her eyes, revealing an incredulous expression. Ji Huang, what's going on? Inside the ice coffin was a young man. Mu Yin recognized it at a glance. This was Ning Su, but Ning Su had clearly been killed by her in the cultivation continent. Furthermore, under the dual suppression of the power of laws and the divine punishment heavenly thunder, not even his bones were left. Then who was this man in the ice coffin? A ghost? Or another pair of twins? The key was Ning Su in the ice coffin alive or dead? Mayan's complexion alternates between green and white. For a long time, her mind is buzzing, and she can't say a word. Even Seven Brilliance, who was in the space, was dumbfounded. He was also one of the people who had witnessed Ning Su's physical body being destroyed and his soul dispersing with his own eyes. The person in the ice coffin in front of him looked exactly like Ning Su. Even if they were twins, it was impossible for there to be no difference at all, right? That's an extremely rare demonic art called soundless doppelganger. Chapter 3654. Girl, you don't have to be afraid. The one lying in the ice coffin isn't Ning Su's ghost, nor is it his corpse, but his clone. Mu Yin abruptly turns her head. She sees that an old man with white hair and a face full of wrinkles has appeared in the cave without her noticing. At first sight of this old man, Mu Yin was subconsciously shocked, because the old man in front of her is too old. Wrinkles all over his face, sparse white hair, and age spots all over his hands, neck, and face. Generally speaking, a cultivator's lifespan is based on their cultivation. The more talented a person is, the longer their appearance will be maintained at its peak. Even if their cultivation can advance, and they gradually age, they still look much younger than ordinary mortals. There are very, very few high-level cultivators who would age like this old man in front of her. He sees that Mayan is staring at his face. The old man smiles warmly and steps forward. You're the little girl that Fu Shan brought back, right? I remember you're called Mu Yin. right? To be able to reach the peak of the earth-opening realm at such a young age, your talent is really hard to imagine. Mu Yin composes herself and bows slightly to the old man. Mu Yin greets the old ancestor. Good child, get up, no need to be so polite. Ning Kunshin smiles benevolently, looking at her with eyes full of gratification and nostalgia. I still remember that when Yin Xian was a child, she was also as beautiful as you. It's just that her temperament was too cold, and she didn't like to talk to anyone. You're still good like this, girl. Little girls should be lively and lively, not like an old antique like me who should be in a coffin. He chuckles as he speaks, slowly walking to the ice coffin and gently buckling it. A pair of eyes that were incomparably benevolent just a moment ago falls on Mu Yan's face, suddenly carrying a bit of fierceness. Girl, was it you who killed Ning Su in the Xiojin continent? Mu Yan's heart shudders, but her face doesn't change. What is the old ancestor talking about? Mu Yan doesn't understand. Ning Kunshin chuckles, the pressure around him dispersing. Girl, you don't have to be nervous. I think it must be Ning Su who wanted to kill you. So you had to resist, right? Mu Yan stares blankly again. Seeing her reaction, Ning Kunshin revealed a look of understanding. Then he sighed softly and said, Ning Su was very attached to your mother back then. He always thought that it was your father who took Yanxin away. In addition, because of his background, he especially hates the demon race. So, I guess that he might make a move against you. Mu Yan knits her brows. Ning Su's past. For a moment, Ning Kunshin's gaze became absent-minded and sorrowful, as if he wanted to look into the distance. The old man's low and hoarse voice sounded so fragile and lonely that people couldn't help but feel pity for him. Lass, I think you must be very curious about this Ning family that is built underground and lives like the living dead, right? Also, why did you set up a formation in your own home to monitor everyone's movements? You're making our home not feel like home, and our family not feel like family. Mu Yan's eyes flashed as she vigilantly looked at the old man in front of her. Ning Kunshin acted as if he didn't see the change in her expression. Still using his low and hoarse voice, he slowly said, Girl, are you willing to listen to this old thing's story? After listening, you'll know why my Ning family has become like this, and why so many people oppose your mother and father being together. Chapter 3655. Mayan nods and helps the swaying Ning Kunshin sit down on a rock covered with ice. Listening to Ning Kunshin talk about the legendary and tragic past of the Ning family. A long, long time ago, the Ning family was also one of the largest families in the Xiojin continent. But in a catastrophe 10,000 years ago, the Ning family was inadvertently hit by a vicious curse technique. It was called Yuan-breaking Devil Soul Curse. Ning Kunshin looks at Mayan. You probably don't know what a curse is, right? Mayan doesn't speak and just listens quietly. A curse is 100 times more terrible than witchcraft and poison. If possible, I hope that you won't understand it for the rest of your life. After being hit by the Yuan-breaking Devil Soul Curse, all the high-level cultivators of the Ning family began to age rapidly, and the number of people gradually withered. They were equivalent to being cursed. As long as it was a new generation of descendants, their cultivation could not break through the Xian immortal realm. Even if they went through untold hardships or encountered a fortuitous encounter and really advanced to the Xian immortal realm by coincidence, they would also age rapidly and live no more than 10 years at most. Because of the erosion and torture of the Yuan-breaking Devil Soul Curse, the Ning family gradually declined. Slowly, they could only live in the most remote wilderness of the Xiojin continent, struggling at death's door. More than 2,000 years ago, Ning Kunshin, whose cultivation reached the peak of Golden Immortal, became the head of the Ning family. During one of his adventures, Ning Kunshin accidentally consumed a precious immortal herb. His cultivation, which had been stuck in the Golden Immortal realm, suddenly broke through and reached the Xian immortal realm. The Ning family, who learned the news, not only didn't feel happy, but they were frightened, because they knew that Ning Kunshin, who broke through the Xian immortal realm, would be attacked by the yuan-breaking devil soul curse. In a short period of time, he would grow old, weak, and even die. The Ning family would also lose the head of the family and the strongest person, and from then on, the situation would become more and more unstable. At that time, Ning Kunshan already had a son named Ning Xianting. He was a proud son of heaven whose cultivation talent was several times stronger than Ning Kunshan's. His appearance was unparalleled, and his personality was gentle and elegant. He was once the dream lover of many women in that area. In order to consolidate the Ning family's position, Ning Xianting married the daughter of the head of the largest sect in the wilderness 2 years ago. Although it was only a marriage, Ning Xianting was a good husband. He was gentle and considerate towards his wife. Even if there were countless women throwing themselves at him, he would never say no to them. Ning Kunshan closed his eyes slightly, a pained expression on his face, and his voice became hoarse and trembling. I still remember that Yao had just become pregnant with her second child at that time. Xianting already had a son before that, and he was looking forward to having a daughter when he suddenly received the grievous news that I'd broken through into the mysterious immortal realm. Xianting is a very filial child, and he carries the responsibility of the Ning family on his shoulders. I didn't expect that the child would make such a decision to save my life. And it was this decision that changed the fate of everyone in the Ning family. In the past, the demon race had not yet been unified in the Xiaoxin continent, although most of the demons still lived in the hidden abyss. But there was also a portion of the demon race that liked to live under the sun and were also confident in their strength, so they chose to settle in some areas outside the sphere of influence of the polar domain and the nether domain. In the wilderness, there was also a demon race sect called the Demon Illusion Palace. The Ning family asked around and found out that the princess of the Demon Illusion Palace was born with the spirit demon body. From the moment she was born, a crystal-like pearl would condense in her heart, called the tear of a ghost. Chapter 36:56. As she grew older, the power of the tear of the ghost would become stronger and stronger. But for Princess Enrich, this tear of the ghost was not a rare treasure, but something that could threaten her life. Because the tear of the ghost could not be taken out of Enrich's body. Once it was taken out, the tear of the ghost would dissipate in the air. There was only one way to take out the tear of the ghost. That was Enrich was willing to give up her life for another person and shed a blood tear that contained all of her essence and blood. That was the tear of the ghost. It was said that the tear of the ghost was extremely pure and affectionate. It could expel all the filth in the world, even the most terrible curse. Although these were only rumors, in order to save his father's life and to revitalize the Ning family, Ning Xianting was determined to give it a try. He disguised himself as a human rogue cultivator and sneaked into the town where the Demon Illusion Palace was located. Then he created all kinds of coincidences and came to Enrich. Ning Xianting was born handsome, tall, elegant, and knowledgeable. He was gentle and strong. After spending a lot of time with him, he quickly captured the heart of Enrich. The two were deeply in love and would not marry anyone but him. In order to be with Ning Xianting, Enrich did not even hesitate to break up with her mother in the Demon Illusion Palace and insisted on following Ning Xianting back to the Ning family. And just when they were about to arrive at the Ning family, Ning Xianting was seriously injured in order to save Enrich. Enrich was heartbroken and made a wish to heaven, willing to exchange her life for Ning Xianting's. The tear of the ghost finally turned into a bright red blood tear and rolled down from Enrich's eyes. And this young and beautiful demon girl also died in Ning Xianting's arms and lost her life. And she would never know. All of this was just a scam made by Ning Xianting. He was not injured at all, nor was his life in danger. All the drama was just to cheat the tear of the ghost that was condensed from her life. Ning Xianting returned to the Ning family with the tear of the ghost. The tear of the ghost that was said to be able to expel all filth really lived up to its reputation. It really began to break the yuan-breaking demon soul spell that the Ning family was suffering. But right at this time, the Fiend Race army rushed into the Ning family, killing people on sight. It turned out that although Ni Chang's mother, the palace master of the Demon Fantasy Palace, had broken off with her daughter, she was still worried about her only relative, so she sent someone to follow her. Who would have thought that he would witness such a complete scam? And because of such a liar, Ai Shang did not even give him a chance to stop him before she shed the tears of a ghost. A bloody battle broke out in the wild north. The Ning family, the illusionary demon palace, and the sect that Ning Xianting's wife belonged to were all involved. Spirit cultivators and demonic cultivators were natural enemies. The spirit cultivators of the wildlands did not care about the cause of the matter. He stood directly on the side of the Ning family and joined forces to kill the devils. Moreover, everyone knew that there were many treasures in the enchanted palace. As long as they destroyed the enchanted palace, those treasures would be theirs. In the end, evil cannot triumph over good. The illusionary demon palace was slaughtered, and no one was left alive. Blood dyed the ground where the enchanted fantasy palace was. Even after 100 years or 1,000 years, it still wouldn't fade. The spirit cultivators congratulated each other and ran around to spread the news. However, they did not know that the palace master of the enchanted fantasy palace also had the tear of the ghost. Chapter 36:57. It was just that after she married and had children, the tear of ghost had lost its effect of eliminating filth and saving people, but it became the primer to launch the curse. Before the palace master of the demon illusion palace died, he sacrificed his soul and cursed all the spirit cultivators who slaughtered the demon illusion palace to die a horrible death. Ning Kunshin still clearly remembered the heart-wrenching voice of the palace master before he died, crying and laughing. I will use my soul as a sacrifice and pray for the tear of the nether ghost to activate the curse for me. I want to curse these sanctimonious and self-righteous spirit cultivators. From today on, their cultivation will stagnate and they will be haunted by demons. The world is so big, but there will be no place for you. Ning Xianting, for your own selfishness, deceived my daughter's feelings, killed her body and soul, and then united with the spirit cultivators to destroy my demon illusion palace. Now the karma is reincarnated. I want you to watch the Ning family you care about the most be doomed. I curse the Ning family to be haunted by the Yuan destroying devil's soul curse again, to suffer day and night. I curse the Ning family to fall into hell and never see the light of day. Unless there comes a day when the women of the Ning family become prostitutes for generations and the men become slaves for generations, unless all the descendants of the Ning family die, this curse will haunt the descendants of the Ning family for generations to come, never to disappear. Mu Yin sucked in a breath of cold air. This curse was too cruel, but from the perspective of the palace master of the demon illusion palace, she did nothing wrong. It was Ning Xianting who first deceived and killed her daughter, and then slaughtered the entire demon illusion palace. The hatred in her heart could be imagined. Mu Yin looked at Ning Kunshin. She saw that the old man's wrinkled face was covered with tears. There was remorse, pain, and many unknown things in his eyes. Mu Yin asked, "What happened then?" The curse was obviously not fully fulfilled. Otherwise, after more than 2,000 years, Ning Kunshin could not still be alive. And Ning, you could not be so carefree outside. Ning Kunshin sighed and showed a wry smile. After the palace master of the demon illusion palace successfully cast the curse, the spirit cultivators who were still excited panicked. They thought that our Ning family caused all this and caused them to be cursed, so they banished our Ning family from the cultivation continent. In the battle with the enchanted palace, the Ning family had already suffered a lot of casualties. Without the protection of any space jump magic treasure, they were directly thrown into the space barrier channel. When they reached the floating island, there were only a few people left in the Ning family. And the Yuan-breaking devil soul curse on me broke out again. I suddenly became extremely old and dying. Xianting believes that his actions have brought an even greater disaster to the Ning family. His heart was full of remorse and guilt. In order to leave a glimmer of hope for the Ning family, he left a jade virtual reincarnation formation and sacrificed his life to finally break half of the curse of the palace master of the demon fantasy palace. Mu Yin was stunned. Jade virtual reincarnation formation? Ning Kunshin looked at her in surprise. Lass, do you know about this formation? Mu Yin shook her head. I don't know, but the names sound a little strange. Ning Kunshin sighed and said, this formation was found by Xian Ting a long time ago, but it can only be operated by sacrificing the life of a loved one. I didn't allow him to use it anyway. But who knew that Xian Ting would still walk on this path in the end? Mu Yin frowned slightly. Chapter 3658. Mu Yin always felt that the name Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation was familiar, as if she had heard it somewhere. But when she asked Qi Huang, he also said he didn't know. Mu Yin could only put it aside and listen to Ning Kunshin continue to talk about the history of the Ning family. Ning Xianting's sacrifice gave the Ning family a chance to breathe. Everyone was eager to return to the immortal cultivation continent as soon as possible and restore the glory of the Ning family. But soon they found that everything could not go as they wished, because the Ning family could not ascend. Even if they reached the Xian immortal realm, they would no longer become old and weak. But there was no way to ascend to the immortal cultivation continent. Once a Ning family tried to pass through the space barrier, it would attract the 9 cycles heavenly thunder. Instead of crossing the tribulation, they would be directly killed. And the most terrible thing was, they could not walk under the sun for a long time. Otherwise, they would gradually lose their minds and age. The formation arranged in every corner of the Ning family was not to monitor everyone's every move, but to prevent someone from getting sick and not being treated in time. Mu Yin couldn't help but be surprised. Ningyu has been outside. Ning Kunshin smiled and asked, have you met Ningyu? He shook his head and said, don't worry, it's Fu Sheng and the others who can't walk under the sun. When it came to your mother's generation, as long as their cultivation broke through the 5th stage of Golden Immortal Realm, they were not so afraid of the sun. As for Ning Su and Ningyu, and you, the sun will not cause any harm to you. Why? Ning Kunshin sighed softly. That's because for many years, there have been Ning family members who have been willing to sacrifice the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation. It weakened the curse of the Palace Master of the Magic Illusion Palace. In your generation, you don't have to be afraid of the sun anymore, and you don't have to hide in this grave-like castle for the rest of your life. Mu Yan's heart jumped, and she asked subconsciously, sacrificing the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation means sacrificing one's life like Ning Xianting. Yes. Ning Kunshin heaved a long sigh. As long as the Ning family can prosper and regain the glory of the ancient times, I'm willing to pay any price. However, not everyone can sacrifice themselves to the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation. I want to do something for the Ning family, but the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation is not willing to accept it. As Ning Kunshin spoke, a self-mocking smile appeared on his face. Then, the smile turned sad and gratified. Fortunately, the children of the Ning family are not selfish people who are afraid of death. For the glory of the Ning family, they are willing to sacrifice their lives. It was Xian Ting and the sacrifice of these children that allowed the Ning family to find a chance of survival amidst the vicious curse and survive. Soon, he shakily stood up and touched the ice coffin with his hand, but his eyes were looking into the distance. Soon, the Ning family will be able to completely get rid of the curse and return to the Xiaoxin continent. Xian Ting, you'll definitely see this moment come with your own eyes, right? Mu Yin subconsciously frowns. The glory of the Ning family had to be exchanged with the lives of their descendants. Even if it was voluntary, it still made her feel uncomfortable. Ning Kunshin turned around and saw her frowning at Ning Su in the ice coffin. He couldn't help smiling. Girl, I know you don't like Ning Su, but there's a reason why he is so stubborn. Chapter 3659. Because of the grudges with the illusionary demon palace, our Ning family has always hated the devil race. But Ning Su's mother was the beloved concubine of a devil cultivator. Mein Gox, what? Ning Su's background was actually so bizarre? Ning Kunshin said. Ningsu's father is called Ning Zhongyu. He was once the son that your maternal grandfather valued the most. He was also recognized as the next successor of the Ning family. Unfortunately, he fell in love with a mysterious woman, Shi Zhiyu, whom he had rescued from the outside. The two of them fell in love with each other, and Shi Zhiyu told Zhongyu the truth. She was a devil cultivator's beloved concubine. Because she couldn't stand the devil cultivator's torture, she fled from the Xiaoxin continent to the lower realm. However, that devil cultivator has her soul lamp. One day, he will chase her to the floating island. In order to escape the pursuit of the fiendish cultivators, Ning Zhongyu escaped to the cultivation mainland with Shi Zhiyu and gave birth to Ning Su in the branch Ning family on the cultivation mainland. Mu Yin looks pensive. No wonder teacher Yao Guang had addressed Ning Su as young master back then. Ning Su was active in the cultivation continent all year round. It turned out that he was actually born on the cultivation continent. However, good things didn't last long. When Ning Su was 5, the fiendish cultivator still chased him all the way to the cultivation land and killed almost everyone in the Ning family branch. Even Zhongyu died at the hands of that fiendish cultivator. In order to take revenge and protect her son, Shi Zhiyu pretended to be obedient to the devil cultivator and seduced him to make love with her on the cultivation continent. Yet, in the midst of joy, he suddenly launched an attack, intending to perish together with the devil cultivator. That devil cultivator's strength was superb. He actually survived Shi Zhiyu's sneak attack, but his cultivation was crippled from then on, and he can no longer return to the Xiaoxin continent. He hated Zhongyu and Shi Zhiyu to the bone, so he kept the 5-year-old Ning Su by his side and tortured him day and night. It wasn't until your mother, Yin Xian, went to the cultivation land to relax and accidentally saw the keepsake that belonged to her brother on Ning Su that she killed the fiendish cultivator and brought Ning Su back to the Ning family. And at that time, Ning Su had already been tortured by that devil cultivator for a whole 8 years, even though he did not have a good impression of Ning Su. Hearing Ning Kunshin's narration, Mu Yin couldn't help but be slightly moved. Being tortured for 8 years in the hands of an enemy, one could imagine what kind of hell this kind of life was. It was no wonder that Ning Su would hate devil cultivators to the bone, almost to the point of being paranoid. Ning Kunshin gently shook his head and said with a sigh, "In fact, Ning Su's talent is very good, even far surpassing that girl Ningyu. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to easily master the soundless doppelganger, an evil skill that no one has ever been able to master. However, no one taught him well, so he grew up crooked. Fu Sheng had always felt that it was Ning Su's mother, Shi Zhiyu, who had killed his eldest son, whom he valued the most. So he didn't show any mercy to Ning Su, so the whole Ning family went along with him and bullied him wantonly. Only your mother, Yin Xian, treats him well. Perhaps because of this, Ning Su saw your mother as the only thing he could rely on. He even developed a twisted paranoia and possessiveness." Ning Kunshin sighed softly, his expression compassionate and self-reproachful. "If I hadn't been in closed-door training all year round because of the torment of the Yuan-breaking devil soul spell, I couldn't devote myself to teaching Fu Sheng, and I couldn't change his mind in time, he wouldn't have become what he is now, and he wouldn't have almost caused your parents to die." Mu Yan's breathing paused slightly. Looking at Ning Kunshin, she slowly asked, "What happened back then? Did my father come to the Ning family? Where did he and my mother go?" Chapter 3660. I remember your father is called Jun Shiyuan, right? Ning Kunshin frowned slightly and tried hard to recall. He was a handsome and spirited young man. If I looked closely, he looked similar to you. Your eyes look like Yin Xian's, but your gaze is more like your father's. Mu Yin asked, "Did my father really come to the Ning family?" "Yes. About 20 years ago, Yin Xian was supposed to be relaxing in the cultivation continent, but she was suddenly escorted back by Ning Su." Ning Kunshin shook his head and said, "Only then did we know that Yin Xian had gotten married and had a child behind our backs. Furthermore, the person she married is a devil cultivator." Everyone in the Ning family was enraged and kept Yin Xian under strict surveillance. But it wasn't long before your father came knocking on my door. Heh, that boy's cultivation isn't high, but his temper is very stubborn. He blocked the entrance of the Ning family's bunker and refused to leave, even if he was beaten half to death. Ning Kunshin wiped his face and said, "When people get old, their hearts soften easily. I've always felt that the grudge between the Ning family and the magical fantasy palace. The Ning family is also at fault. That's why I persuaded Fu Sheng to accept your father, as long as he was willing to stay in the Ning family and live a life of darkness with Yen Xin. Your mother is your grandfather's most beloved child. In the end, she couldn't change his mind and agreed to be together. There are also people in the Ning family who were reluctant, but in the end, they still accepted. But who knew that night? Ning Su would suddenly attack. It was as if he had gone mad. He would rather kill your mother than allow her to be taken away by others. Your mother was severely injured by Ning Su's sword. Your father was shocked and angry, and refused to trust the Ning family anymore. So he carried your mother and left in the middle of the night, and never came back. Mayan quietly listens to Ning Kunshin's narration, not saying a word. In fact, she still had many doubts in her heart. There were so many people in the Ning family. Their cultivation levels should be higher than Ning Su's at that time. Why couldn't they stop a crazy Ning Su? But Mu Yin knows that there are some questions that she can't get an answer to even if she asks them now. Even if he got the answer, he wouldn't be able to tell if it was true or false. In that case, he might as well not ask. Ning Kunshin stretches out his skinny hand and gently pats Mayan's shoulder. His voice is indescribably gentle and kind. Girl, I know that you must have suffered a lot of grievances outside for so many years. But now that you've returned to the Ning family, you will have the old ancestor to back you up. No one can bully you anymore. As for Ning Su, although he is still alive, after half of his soundless doppelganger was destroyed, he will have to sleep for at least 100 years before he can wake up. Moreover, his cultivation will also regress by a lot. This is the punishment he deserves. From now on, just treat the Ning family as your own home. Don't regard yourself as an outsider, understand? Mayan lifts her eyes and meets a pair of muddy but bottomless eyes. There is the gentleness and kindness of an elder. There are also some things that Mu Yin doesn't understand. She smiled and nodded. Got it. Good child. As the two were talking, Ning Zhongye's voice suddenly came from outside the cave. Ancestor, have you finished your seclusion? Just now, someone reported seeing a figure here. Did you notice anything unusual? Ning Kunshin made a shushing gesture at Mayan, then blinked mischievously. Then he coughed lightly and said, I've finished my seclusion. So I came to this ice cave to check on that Ning Su kid. I didn't find anything unusual. Chapter 36-61. Yes. Since old ancestor has already come out of seclusion, there will definitely be no problem. Zhongye will go and report to the patriarch. Until Ning Zhongye is far away. Ning Kunshin then gently looks at Mayan. Child, go back and rest. The Ning family's underground palace may be very strange, but the Ning family absolutely has no malice towards you. After all, you are also a descendant of the Ning family. Mayan nods and turns to walk out of the cave. Ning Kunshin's low voice faintly comes from behind her. I also hope that when the Ning family needs you, you can help the Ning family that night. Mayan doesn't sleep well. She doesn't know if it's because she has heard too many stories from Ning Kunshin. There are always some bizarre and dazzling scenes in her dreams. Sometimes, it's the demon girl Nick Hang who shed tears of blood. Sometimes, it's Ning Xianting who sacrificed himself and scattered his soul. Sometimes, it's Ning Su who was tortured by the devil cultivator. And sometimes, it's her parents. The dream finally stops at an incomparably beautiful pool. This pool is dark blue. The water of the pool is sparkling, clear like a mirror. The bottom of the pool is paved with blue stone, but there isn't the slightest seam. There are only beautiful runes drawn on it. There's a place in the middle of the pool that's bubbling. The bubbles are constantly rising, supporting a blue bud, bobbing up and down in the water. A lustrous light emits from the blue bud and is transported through the clear water to the bottom of the pool. One rune after another begins to become clear and shiny. Like a beautiful painting, it's being sketched at the bottom of the pool, stroke by stroke. When all the runes at the bottom of the pool have been lit up, the blue bud suddenly and slowly blooms. The next moment, Mayan meets a pair of bloody eyes without upper and lower eyelids. Mayan suddenly jumps up from the bed, cold sweat dripping down from her forehead. Was that a nightmare just now? What kind of place is that pool? Why is there a pair of eyes in the blue bud? No, it should be said that it's the eyeballs. In fact, there might be something else. But she didn't see it clearly. Why does she have this kind of dream? Really, Ning Kunshin isn't telling a horror story. Miss Mayan, are you up? Several maids of the Ning family filed in. Seeing what they are holding in their hands, Mu Yin is simply dumbfounded. Gorgeous clothes, head ornaments, pendants, and even powder and rouge. What are you doing? The head maid said respectfully. The clan leader ordered us to serve Miss Well to attend the family banquet at noon. Family feast? Didn't you just participate yesterday? The maid smiled and said, of course not. At most, yesterday's banquet could only be regarded as a welcoming banquet for Mississippi. Today is the real family banquet. I want everyone in the Ning family to know that you are a legitimate young lady. The corner of Mu Yan's mouth twitches. There were only a few people in the Ning family. Hua Yuhua's big mouth could casually say a few words and everyone would probably know. Was there a need to hold a real family banquet to announce it? She saw a few maidservants bringing her clothes and jewelry, wanted to help her put them on. Mu Yin quickly said, no need, I'm fine wearing this. But you are Miss Ning. How can you dress so shabbily? That's right, Miss Mayan, you are so beautiful. How could this coarse and tattered clothing match your beauty? Seeing that Mu Yin still wouldn't agree, the maidservants' faces reveal a terrified expression, and they kneel down one after another. Chapter 36-62. Miss, we were ordered by the Patriarch to serve you. If we don't serve you well, the Patriarch won't let us off. Can you just let us help you dress? Mu Yin sees that the little maids are about to cry, and the fear in their eyes can't be concealed. She can't help but sigh helplessly. All right, isn't it just wearing new clothes and putting on makeup? She won't lose a piece of flesh. Mu Yin lets them help her put on clothes and jewelry. When everything is ready, the little maids can't help but let out exclamations one after another. Too beautiful. Young miss, this servant has never seen anyone as beautiful as you. A girl dressed in red is reflected in the Yoli glass. Mu Yin rarely wears red clothes. She's often dressed in white, like a beautiful bright moon, or in green, as elegant as an immortal. But at this moment, this red dress makes the girl's complexion whiter than snow, more delicate and glistening than a flower petal. The slightly raised peach blossom eyes seem to be overflowing with the brilliance of the world. With a gentle flash, it can already take away a person's soul. She's really delicate, fairy-like, and jade-like. All the men in the world who wouldn't be captivated by Miss's appearance, confused and infatuated, if anyone is lucky enough to marry Miss in the future, that would really be a blessing of 3 lifetimes. Mu Yin smiles carelessly, refusing them to apply makeup on her face again. She doesn't care if all the men in the world would be captivated by her. But this outfit, it would be great if Diming Ju could take a look. What kind of expression would Jun Shangdaran show? Would he continue to maintain his iceberg face, or would he show a look of amazement and infatuation? She imagines Jun Shang showing an infatuated expression. The painting is too beautiful to look at. Her divine sense schemes over the space, meeting Qi Huang's dazed gaze. Mu Yin hooks up her lips and says with a playful smile, "What? Dumbfounded? Captivated by this big sister? Get lost." Qi Huang suddenly comes back to his senses, stomping his feet in anger. This sage is an ancient artifact spirit. Do you know what an ancient artifact spirit means? Stupid woman. Whose sister are you calling yourself? Mu Yin thinks for a moment and says, Qi Huang, little bastard, have you been captivated by Master's beauty? Jun Mayan, I'll fight it out with you. Who are you calling a little bastard? Fuck your little bastard. Ha ha. Amidst the laughter and banter with Qi Huang, Mayan is led by the maid towards the south. She discovered that the place where the Ning family held the banquet this time wasn't the same hall as last night. Instead, it was an even more dazzling hall. And this time, the table was no longer empty. Instead, there were many servants of the Ning family shuttling back and forth. There were already several tables in the hall. The table was filled with fragrant delicacies. The empty space in front of the main hall was extremely large. At this moment, there was a beautiful woman dancing to the music of a stringed instrument. Mu Yin is puzzled. She was getting more and more unfathomable. Is this how the Ning family's family banquets are held? Other than grandfather Ning Fuxing's table, which was full of people from the Ning family, who were the other tables? She didn't seem to know any of them. Yin'er is here. Seeing him, a rare smile appeared on Ning Fuxing's cold and serious face. He actually personally came forward and led her to the main table. Seeing Ning Fuxing pass by with Mu Yan, the people at the other tables stood up one after another in fear and trepidation. Chapter 36-63. Saluting Ning Fuxing and greeting Mayan. This must be the Ning family's newly recognized daughter, right? She really is an outstanding beauty, and her appearance is peerless. Not to mention her appearance, she has already reached the earth-opening realm at this age. It's no wonder that Patriarch Ning would attach so much importance to her. Patriarch Ning is really blessed. His own strength is not bad, and his granddaughter is also so outstanding. We are really fortunate to be able to attach ourselves to the Ning family. Yes, saying that we are from Maomu City's Ning family will make others think highly of us. All of this is thanks to Patriarch Ning. Only now does Mayan know that the people sitting at the other tables are the patriarchs and elders of the Ning family's branches. So, this banquet, is it really to introduce her to the Ning family? Everyone? Mayan frowns slightly. She feels that something is not quite right. She remembers Ning Yu saying that the Ning family's main family would never put the Ning family's branches in their eyes. These people are not allowed to enter the main family's underground palace on ordinary days, unless there is a particularly urgent matter. Today, in order to show their identity, they deliberately invited these people from the branch families? It's very strange no matter how she thinks about it. After Mayan and Ning Fuxing are seated, the family banquet officially begins. The dances in front of them change, one after another. Each dancer is more beautiful and enchanting than the next. But most people's attention is simply unable to focus on the dancers. Because compared to Mayan, the beauty of these dancers is too vulgar, too cheap. Like pearls and fish eyes, they simply cannot be compared. From time to time, someone would cast an infatuated and stunned gaze on Mayan, and then quickly avoid it. Mayan has always been used to being the focus of others, and doesn't care about this kind of gaze. But soon, she feels that something is wrong. There seemed to be a scorching, invasive line of sight falling on her body. Then, it doesn't even blink and doesn't leave again. Mayan looks around. Except for the Ning family, everyone else is in awe of her, the eldest daughter of the main family. So even if they were just peeking, at this time, as soon as they meet her gaze, they immediately shrink back in fear. But even if everyone lowers their heads, that scorching gaze, which seemed to be inspecting and selecting its prey, never dissipated. He followed her like a shadow, like maggots in a tarsal bone, constantly falling on her body. Moreover, he was getting more and more unbridled. Unfortunately, Mu Yin can't find the source of her gaze. Her long eyelashes droop down, covering the darkness in her eyes. Ning Fuxing, who was sitting in the main seat, let out a sigh of relief and smiled. However, the smile disappeared in an instant. After 3 rounds of drinking, Ning Zhongye discreetly gave Hua Yuhua a look. Hua Yuhua's eyes were filled with struggle. But under Ning Zhongye's warning gaze, she still managed to force a smile and tugged at Mayan's sleeve. Mu Yan, it's too stuffy here. Why don't we go to the garden at the back to get some air? Hua Yuhua no longer had any uneasiness on her face. It looked like he really couldn't hold it in any longer. Maya nods and stands up. When Ning Zhongbai who was sitting at the side, saw the two of them stand up. His grip on his chopsticks tightened. He almost subconsciously shouted, "Don't go out!" Mayan looked over, flabbergasted. Ning Zhongbai's face was almost drained of blood, and the hand holding the chopsticks was trembling. Chapter 36-64. On the side, Ning Jiangwen and Ning Jinwu look over with murderous eyes. But Ning Zhongbai still grits his teeth and says in a hoarse and desperate voice, "It's cold outside. It's better to stay here. Don't go out." The atmosphere at the main table suddenly turns cold to the extreme. "Second brother, are you possessed?" Ning Zhongya suddenly laughs. "This is the underground palace. It doesn't see the sun all year round, and it's not exposed to wind and rain. How can there be heat and cold? Yuhua isn't going to take Mayan out of this underground palace. We're just strolling in the back garden. Why are you so worried, second brother?" Saying that, he shows a helpless and gentle smile to Mayan. "Mayan, don't blame second cousin for being alarmed. He only has one sister, Yinxin, and he used to treasure her very much. Now that you've finally come back, he becomes suspicious, afraid that you'll bump into something. Second brother is really too much, who would harm Mayan in their own home." The people at the main table all agree one after another. Ning Zhongbai still wants to say something. Ning Fuxing's sharp, hawk-like gaze is already looking over. Ning Zhongbai suddenly feels as if all the blood in his body has been frozen. His whole body is stiff, and he can't say another word. He can only look at his niece smiling and saying to him, "Second uncle, I'll be back soon, don't worry." Then she's taken out by Yuhua. The suffocating pressure disappears. Ning Fuxing's slightly warning voice comes to his ears. But Ning Zhongbai's ears are buzzing, and he can't hear what he's saying. Tears unconsciously fall from his eyes. Everything is cold. The Ning family's underground palace is underground and doesn't see the light of day. But the garden is more beautiful than the courtyards of the big families outside, and it's full of flowers. The gurgling of water comes from far ahead, accompanied by bursts of flower fragrance. The wind elemental array formation created a gentle breeze that would gently blow every once in a while. The most amazing thing is that there are actually bees and butterflies flying among the flowers. If you don't look up, what you see is not the blue sky and white clouds, but the dazzling illumination stones. Muyin almost thinks that this is a beautiful natural courtyard. Hua Yuhua holds Mayan's hand as they walk on the flower path. Her face is full of cordial and enthusiastic smiles, and she chatters on about the Ning family's matters. "Muyin, don't look at how the Ning family has always been living in this underground palace that doesn't see the light of day. However, the foundation of the Ning family is definitely not something that the 3 alliances, 8 sects, or the other 5 families can compare to. The subsidiary branches and sects of the Ning family that you saw today are all completely loyal to the Ning family, and they definitely wouldn't dare to go against the Ning family. Although the Ning family's main family members live in seclusion, the Ning family's branch business has spread all over the country. When you go out in the future, as long as you say that you're the Ning family's young lady, the entire floating island will be under your control." Listening to Hua Yuhua's praise of the Ning family, Mu Yin declined to comment. Hua Yuhua suddenly stops talking and gives her a meaningful look. "But Mayan, your future good fortune is far more than this. Perhaps the entire Ning family will have to rely on you in the future." Mu Yin lightly said. "Third aunt must be joking." A complicated look flashed in Hua Yuhua's eyes as she turned to look behind her. Chapter 36-65. This thing is every Ning family's treasure. It absolutely can't be lost. Mayan, wait here for Annie for a while. Annie will go back first. With that, without waiting for Mayan's response, Hua Yuhua quickly turns and leaves. In the blink of an eye, that figure disappears among the flowers. Mayan narrows her eyes, the corners of her lips slightly hooked up, and she continues to walk forward. Soon, the narrow path between the flowers comes to an end. What appears in front of her is a dark blue lake, and the wide meadow beside the lake. as well as the flowers that compete with each other in beauty. The illumination crystals above reflect the lake, sparkling and clear, beautiful beyond compare. But Mayan's line of sight only glances around, and then falls under a blackwood pine. There stands a young man in luxurious purple clothes. Sensing Mayan's approach, he slowly turns around, revealing a handsome face. Looking at his appearance, this man is about 25 or 26 years old. High nose, deep eyes, noble and extraordinary temperament. His appearance is a bit more handsome than the men of the Ning family. But this person has a pair of eyes that make people very uncomfortable. When he turns to look at Mayan, the pupils in his deep eyes constricted slightly. In an instant, a blazing flame sprang up from the depths of his eyes. Stunning, excited, greedy, determined to win. Even if he still has his hands behind his back, a reserved and proud smile on his face. Even his face is somewhat indifferent, as if he doesn't put Mayan in his eyes. But those eyes are naked, as if he wants to pounce over and strip Mayan clean of her clothes right now. Mayan slightly frowns, stopping her footsteps. The man in front of her hooks up his lips and says in a gentle tone, "Come here." Mayan remains motionless in her place. A trace of hostility flashes through the man's eyes, and his tone is also gloomy and impatient. "Gu told you to come over. Didn't you hear?" "Sorry." Mayan carelessly says, "Who the hell do you think you are? That I'll go over just because you tell me to?" The man suddenly stares blankly. He seems to have never encountered a woman who dared to speak to him like this. The first thing that comes to his mind is anger and ruthlessness. But then he feels that it's incomparably novel. He lowers his smile and unexpectedly condescends to slowly walk towards Mayan. "Very good, woman. You've successfully aroused my interest." Mayan, she was just short of rolling her eyes. Where did this lunatic come from? She turned to leave. The man's figure had already appeared in front of her in an instant. Muyan's heart jumps. What a fast speed. What a powerful pressure. When a man arrived in front of her, he saw that her face was a little pale and her body was unable to move. A look of disdain and pride appeared on his face. The Xiuzha on Floating Sky Island, no matter how talented they were, so what if they were stubborn? In his eyes, there were nothing more than ants that he could squash to death with a wave of his hand. He only needed to release a little bit of pressure. He could make a proud and disobedient woman tremble in fear, or have a face full of infatuation and worship, and then melt into a puddle of water in his arms, letting him play with her. Yuani looked down at the girl in front of him. The look in his eyes became more and more infatuated and passionate. Looking at her from afar, he felt that the woman the Ning family wanted to present to him was indeed a stunner. She was not inferior to Yu Yanran at all. But now that he looked at it up close, he realized the girl's skin was as white as snow. Even if he stared at her inch by inch, he couldn't find the slightest flaw. Chapter 3666. Just by looking at it, he can imagine how delicate and soft this skin will feel under his hand, just like the world's most translucent white jade. Not to mention her peerlessly exquisite and devastatingly beautiful facial features. Her red dress is like fire. It sets off her ice skin and jade bones even more. It also outlines her perfect lines that can make a person's blood boil. That pair of peach blossom eyes, even when sneering, seems to be full of ripples. Yuani's body unconsciously becomes hot. He can't wait to have a good taste of this stunner right now. Moreover, she's clearly only in her early 20s, but her cultivation has already reached the 6th level of Golden Immortal. Even in the Xiuxian continent, such talent is extremely rare. Yuani really didn't expect it. On a small floating island, there's actually such a superb woman. Peerless beauty, purity, nobility, and exceptional talent. It's a waste to play with such a stunner on the floating island. He can take her back to the netherworld, keep her in his boudoir, and play with her at any time. Wait until he marries the demon princess. If the princess is not obedient enough, he will make this beauty a side concubine. In this way, the demon princess will know what kind of plaything she is. If she wants to establish a foothold in the netherworld, if she wants to get Yuani's favor, she can only be obedient and please him. Enyuani releases his pressure and stares at Mayan for a short period of time. In his mind, thousands of years have already been running. His eyes are also getting deeper and hotter, with a bit of doting and pity. Gu's name is Enyuani. You'd better remember these 3 words for Gu, because in the future, this will be your man's name. His voice becomes incomparably soft, and he reaches out to caress the girl's face. As long as you are obedient and serve Gu well, in the future, countless glory, wealth, and cultivation resources will all be yours. Of course, for your Ning family's sake, Gu will give you face and do it in passing. Not far away, watching this scene, Yenleji's heart is beating wildly, his face full of surprise. In the netherworld, the young master, who has always been fierce and casual with women, completely treating them as objects to vent his anger, unexpectedly shows such a gentle expression to a woman. He even said that in the future, endless glory, splendor, wealth, and cultivation resources were all yours. These words were enough to prove how satisfied the young master was with this Miss Ning. The Ning family had made the right move. Yenleji had made the right move. The young miss of the Ning family was offered to them through Yenleji. In the future, when Miss Ning was favored, wouldn't she have to thank Yenleji? The day of his meteoric rise and his exaltation had finally arrived. However, just as Enyuani's hand was about to touch Mu Yan's face, suddenly, he felt a chill on his neck. An indescribable fear welled up in his heart, causing him to instinctively lean back and disappear from where he stood. Mu Yan holds the 7 Absolutes sword with some regret. Just now, Enyuani's throat was almost cut off by the soundless, almost transparent, and colorless 7 Absolute swords. She held her sword and looked at the furious man in front of her. She smiled faintly and said, "I'm sorry. If you want to be my man, you have to line up from Gravel Hill to Malmu City. Who do you think you are? Oh, you're not a green onion. You're a dog at best. Moreover, you're especially fond of running everywhere, making people sick, but you still think that your charm is unparalleled, and you like to daydream, a mad dog who thinks that he's in love." Chapter 3667. You can search on Baidu for The Enchantress of the City, Heaven-Defying Baby's Black-Bellied Father. Find the latest chapter at the Magic Brush Pavilion. Yenleji's vision darkens when he hears these words from a distance. His legs almost go soft, and he falls to the ground. Is this woman crazy? How dare she? How dare she say such vulgar and vicious words to the young master? How did the Ning family train this woman? Is it possible that they want to loosen the reins only to grasp them better? But this is too much. Aren't they afraid that the young master will directly destroy the entire Ning family in a fit of anger? Enyuani's face is so cold that it can almost drop ice shards. The pressure from his body exudes an incomparably explosive aura. Woman, do you know what you're talking about? Do you know who this solitude is? Do you know what will happen to you if you disobey this solitude? What will happen to the entire Ning family? The pressure that crosses several realms makes Mayan's face pale in an instant. The hand holding the 7 Absolute sword can't stop shaking. Fine beads of sweat come out from her forehead. The girl in front of her is beautiful and delicate, making people want to protect her and press her under their bodies, making her look more pitiful and lovely. But the most attractive thing is the girl's awe-inspiring and inviolable beauty, as if she would never bow her head to anyone. Enyuani looks at such a stunning beauty, and the hostility in his eyes fades a little. He chuckles and steps forward. Did you just say that to make this solitude care more about you? I have to say that you succeeded. This solitude has never seen such an interesting little thing like you, making this solitude want to teach you a lesson and also want to love you. Enyuani hasn't finished saying the words of love that he thinks are overbearing and gentle. A sword light whistles along with the sound of the zither. If it was just sword energy, Enyuani wouldn't care at all. But the sound of the zither turns into a prison in an instant, imprisoning his body. Although it's only for a moment. But Enyuani's action is blocked. And the sword energy, which is as fast as lightning and mixed with a bone-chilling chill, has already whistled. Yuani's face changes greatly. He quickly flicks out a flame with one hand. The dark red flames instantly burn the cage that bound him into ashes. At the same time, it swallowed the whistling sword chi. When the flames dissipated, Yuani was shocked and angry. He didn't expect that on this floating island that he didn't care about at all. He had almost failed miserably in an easy task. Who was this woman? How could a puny, golden immortal trap his movements? However, when Yuani turned his head, he saw that the slender figure had already disappeared into the flowers. It turned out that Mu Yin had long realized that there was a huge gap between her and Yuani's cultivation. No matter how many tricks they used, they would never be a match for him. That's why he just used the Tian Mo Qin to display all kinds of skills, and also used Sword Chi to launch a sneak attack. That was why Yuani was in a panic for a moment. As for herself, she didn't stay for even a moment longer and planned to quickly escape. Everything that happened at the family dinner, plus Yuani's words, Mayan now understands everything. She had been sold by the Ning family. Even if Mayan's shrewdness runs deep, and she's very careful with every step, she still wouldn't have thought of it. The Ning family had done everything they could to bring her back to the Ning family. Everyone was warm and friendly to her. They didn't do it for her mother or her father. Instead, they wanted to sell her to the strong people of the Xiaoxian continent, to fight for a future for the Ning family. Not to mention that she had nothing to do with the Ning family, and she didn't receive any kindness from them. Chapter 3668. You can search on Baidu for Charming Witch Doctor, Heaven-Defying Baby, Black-Bellied Father Wonderful Brush Pavilion to find the latest chapter. Even if she really grew up in the Ning family, she would never exchange her lifelong happiness for the great future of the Ning family. What's more, her biological mother and father had disappeared. They really eloped and left the Ning family. Moreover, it was the Ning family who had harmed her. She hadn't even found out the truth. Just at the moment when Mu Yin fled into the flowers, Yuani gritted his teeth and shouted, "Go after her! Catch this woman and bring her back in one piece. I want her to know what will happen if she disobeys my orders." Immediately, a dozen or so black-clothed figures scuttled out from the surrounding flowering shrubs, chasing after the place where Mayan disappeared. These people were the elites sent by the Lord of the Nether Realm and the Queen of Hell to protect Yuani. Each of them was above the Xian immortal level. They didn't care about a golden immortal girl from the floating sky island at all. They just took it for granted that they could catch her quickly and easily. But they didn't expect that. Mu Yan's speed was completely beyond their imagination of a golden immortal. Even if they had run their immortal chi and tried their best to catch her, they were always a little bit away from catching her. Especially in this garden where there were bunkers everywhere. Mu Yan threw a formation plate, and several of Yuani's guards would be trapped. It was a clear day, and everything was clear in front of them. But these people seemed to have stepped into a maze, going round and round, unable to get out. Soon, Mu Yin escaped from the back garden. As early as when she entered the Ning family, she remembered the way in and out. So at this moment, she rushed in the direction of the bunker gate without hesitation. The gate was right in front of her. Holding the 7 absolute sword in her palm, she slowly raised it as it got closer and closer. However, at this moment, a hand suddenly rested on Mu Yan's shoulder. A pure spiritual power was injected into her. The blood-patterned bell on her waist lit up with a dazzling light. In an instant, Mu Yin felt as if all the strength in her body had been sucked out. The 7 absolute sword in her hand fell, then dissipated like smoke and returned to her body. An old, gentle, and familiar voice reaches Mu Yan's ears. "Little girl, young Master Yin and our Ning family are relatives. He can be considered as your cousin. Cousin was just reminiscing about old times with you. How could you be so rude and abandon young Lord Yin?" Mayan coldly looks at Ning Kunshin, who has appeared beside her at some unknown time. The wrinkled old man in front of her, who looked as if he would die at any moment, had a gentle and benevolent smile on his face, just like yesterday. The way he looked at her was as if he was looking at a disobedient junior that he loved dearly. Even after he finished speaking, he was stunned. He even stretched out his hand and lovingly combed her hair. He softly said, "All right, lass, don't make a fuss. I'll bring you back to apologize to young Master Een. I'm sure young Master Een won't blame us." Ning Kunshin doesn't seem to see Mayan's cold, questioning gaze. She chuckled and said to the two maids behind her, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and help the young miss to young Master Yin's courtyard." Een Yuan's guards caught up with them in a hurry. Hearing Ning Kunshin's words, they didn't speak. They just looked at Mayan with a bit of vigilance and anger. Just now, they were fooled by such a little girl. They took Mayan and left in a hurry. No one noticed that a yellow, fluffy chick appeared at the door of the bunker. Chapter 36-69. Little Inghua let out a few anxious cries, looking at the direction of Mu Yin, who had been taken away. Then looking at the closed door, tears welled up in its big eyes. Whimper, someone bullied Mommy. Mommy released it from the space. It must be for Huang Huang to ask for help. But the door was closed. How could Huang Huang ask for help? Bad door, open quickly. The little chick patted the stone door with its wings. Unexpectedly, the stone door that it was paying close attention to just now shook slightly, opening a small gap. Huh? The bad door opened. Oh, such an obedient door didn't seem to be bad. It should be called a good door. The little chick was overjoyed. It immediately hopped out of the crack. Mommy said before that Daddy's people were nearby. As long as I told them, Daddy would come. It wanted to find Daddy. Let Daddy beat the big bad guy. Let them bully Mommy. Humph. Not long after the little chick left, another figure sneaked into the entrance of the Ning family's underground castle. Huh. The door opened. I'm still thinking about how to let an outsider in without making a sound when the formation doesn't react. Ha ha ha. God is helping me. In the Ning family's underground palace, the most luxurious palace was called Chuya Palace. The entire Chuya Palace was temporarily built by the Ning family in recent years, gathering hundreds of skilled craftsmen. Every ornament placed inside was not an ordinary ornament, but a magic treasure of considerable value on the floating island. Chuya Palace was magnificent, almost surpassing the Lan family's imperial palace. And all of this was to satisfy the esteemed guest who was staying here today. But at this moment, Een Yuani was sitting in the courtyard in front of Chuya Palace. But his face was gloomy. He threw a priceless treasure in front of Ning Fuxing. "This is the beauty that your Ning family offered to me. Do you want to ask me, or do you want to assassinate me? Do you believe me when I say that I can crush every single one of you to death with just one finger?" Swish! Een Yuani's guards, standing on both sides, all unsheathed their long sabers, their whole body suddenly emitting pressure. Killing intent spread throughout the entire Chuya Palace. The Ning family members kneeling on the ground were already shivering. Ning Zhongbai and Hua Yuhua, who had low cultivation bases, had already vomited blood and almost fainted. Only Ning Fuxing, Ning Jiangwen, and Ning Jianwu, who had already reached the heaven-breaking stage, were able to resist the pressure. But fear still caused their clothes to be drenched in cold sweat. Suppressing his fear and rage, Ning Fuxing gritted his teeth and said, "Please rest assured, young Master Een, my Ning family will definitely give you an explanation for this matter. That girl, Mu Yin, has been living outside since she was young and has never received any proper education. I didn't expect that she would actually offend young Master Een. When I bring her to young Master Een, I will personally teach her a lesson." As they were talking, two servant girls escorted Mayan into the courtyard of Chuya Palace. Ning Kunshin followed behind him with a smile. When he got close, he bowed slightly to Een Yuani and said, "I'm Ning Kunshin. Greetings, young Master Een." Een Yuani squinted at him. He didn't expect that there would be profound, immortal-level spirit cultivators on the floating island. Moreover, they were at the third stage of profound immortal. This kind of cultivation was not inferior to his personal guards, but he was only surprised for a moment. Chapter 3670. You can search on Baidu for Charming Witch Doctor, Heaven-Defying Baby's Black-Bellied Father, Wonderbrush Pavilion. Find the latest chapter. In Yuani looks away in disgust, because Ning Kunshin's old face is too ugly. His eyes fall on Mu Yin again. He is still amazed and excited, but compared with before, he has a more violent desire to ravage and torture her. Even in the Xioshan continent, there are several women that he, the young master of the Nether Realm, can't get. She is just a little girl of golden immortal on the floating island. She dares to resist him and almost hurt him. In Yuani's chest rises and falls slightly, and his eyes are shining with greed. Although he is angry, he has to admit, he is more interested in this woman. But obviously, before he dotes on this little woman, he has to teach her a lesson. Feeling In Yuani's cold eyes, Ning Fuxing's heart shudders. He suddenly stands up and walks to Mu Yin, shouting sternly, "Evil creature, kneel down." The two maids escorting Mu Yin lift their feet and kick her knees, trying to force her to kneel. However, just as they lift their feet, he felt a huge rebounding force coming at him. The two of them screamed and fell to the ground. They hugged their legs and wailed in pain. Mu Yin moves her hands and feet to make sure that the spiritual power left by Ning Kunshin in her body has been dispelled, and then she is relieved. She wants to take off the blood-patterned bell on her waist, but she finds that the blood-patterned bell seems to be tied to her whole body. It even cuts the rope tied to her waist and sticks to her firmly without falling. Mu Yin frowns and sees Ning Fuxing walking towards her with a gloomy face. She has to take out a talisman and stick it on the blood-patterned bell. Whoosh! A fierce slap comes to Mu Yan's face. But before it touches Mu Yan's face, she catches it in the air. "Grandpa, what are you doing?" Mu Yan looks at Ning Fuxing with a faint smile. "Yesterday, you were still showing your filial piety to me, and the family banquet in the front hall is not over yet. What? Now you are turning your back on me?" After that, she swings her hand hard. Ning Fuxing almost stumbled from the shake. Ning Fuxing's face was full of anger and disbelief. He, a dignified heaven-shattering stage top expert, had just been suppressed by an Earth creation stage little girl, although it was only for a moment. But Ning Fuxing suddenly realized. He seemed to have underestimated this granddaughter. Ning Fuxing took a deep breath and said with a sullen face, "Yinner, it wasn't easy for Grandpa to reunite with you. I don't even have time to dote on you. So how could I bear to really hit you? But look at what you just did. Young Master Yin is an honored guest of my Ning family. He has a noble status, so it is my Ning family's honor that he is willing to stay with my Ning family. But you actually dared to harm young Master Yin. Aren't you afraid of bringing calamity upon our Ning clan?" Mu Yin glanced at Yin Yuani and smiled sarcastically. "Grandpa, do you mean that if I run into a lecher who flirts with me or a mad dog who wants to bite me, not only can I not resist, but I have to let him bite me?" Yin Leji was furious. "How dare you? How dare you say that our young master is... Yin Leji was so scared that he almost fainted. Where on earth did the Ning family find such a bold girl? Did she really want to die? Yin Yuani's face was so gloomy that it could drip water. There was no killing intent in his eyes when he looked at Mu Yin, but it was full of madness and brutality. He didn't lose his temper immediately. Instead, he stood aside with a sneer. Chapter 3671. You can search on Baidu for Enchantress of the City, Heaven-Defying Baby, Black-Bellied Father, Wonderbrush Pavilion. Find the latest chapter. Because he knew that the Ning family had a favor to ask of him. They would definitely send this woman to his bed. She allowed him to vent his torment at will. Hearing this, Ning Fuxing's face turned livid, and he hurriedly took a look at Yin Yuani. She heaved a sigh of relief after confirming that he wasn't about to explode. "Yinner, what nonsense are you talking about? Do you know how honorable young Lord Yin is?" He raised his hand and pointed towards the sky. The Xioshan continent is divided into 3 parts: the Polar Domain, the Devil Domain, and the Nether Domain. Among the 3, the Nether Realm had the longest history and was the most powerful. The former Nether Saint Emperor had even almost unified the 3 realms and became the supreme ruler of the human race. Do you know who young Master Yin is? He is the only son of the Nether Queen and the Lord of the Nether Realm. He is the heir of the Nether Realm and the future Lord of the Nether Realm. This dash. Gasps could be heard from the audience. The Ning family already knew that the guest they had invited this time was extremely noble. But except for Ning Kunshin and Ning Fuxing, it was the first time for the others to know that Yin Yuan's identity was so respected. The young master of the Nether Realm. The future king of the Netherworld. This such a distinguished guest actually came to their Ning family and actually took a fancy to Mayan. Hua Yuhua, who was still feeling guilty before, is now looking at Mayan with eyes full of envy, jealousy, and hatred. On the other hand, Ning Zhongbai's face was deathly pale, and he was on the verge of collapsing. He had originally thought that even if he had to risk his life, he would still help Mayan escape. But now, he knew that it was impossible. The other party was the domain lord of the Nether Realm. If they wanted to contend against such a colossus, wouldn't that be akin to ants trying to shake a tree and courting death? In the entire Ning family, only Mu Yin frowns when she hears this name. The domain lord of the Nether region? She remembers Han Yi and the others saying that the Netherworld realm and the polar domain are sworn enemies. The strength of the Nether realm was indeed incomparably strong. Although Yin Yuan looked like a fool, he was actually a fool. But since he was the domain lord of the Nether domain, he would not be easy to deal with. Yin Yuan enjoyed the admiration and awe of the people around him, and even the expectant eyes of the women and maids of the Ning family. He couldn't help but show a mocking and proud smile. It was only natural that the ants of the lower realms would look up to him and beg for his favor. However, he was not interested in a group of vulgar women. He could just give it to Yin Leji and the others. What he wanted to see was the woman who dared to resist him showing a panicked and regretful expression, as well as a strong desire for his love. However, Yin Yuan was destined to be disappointed, because Mayan only frowns and looks at him for a moment, then looks away. It was as if he was just a piece of trash, and anyone who looked at him would feel disgusted. Yin Yuan was furious. Then, he comforted himself that it was just a way for this bitch to attract his attention. Perhaps this woman's heart was surging with emotions and longed for him to be with her. Ning Fuxing's eyes were fixed on Mayan, and he said in a gentle tone, it was fate that you and young Master Yin met. Young Master Yin favored you and wanted to take you as a concubine. That was a blessing that you had cultivated for 3 lifetimes. Before, you thought that young Master Yin was impetuous, so your words were offensive. Young Master Yin is a great and magnanimous person, so presumably he would not take offense. But now you should also understand that with young Master Yin's identity, what kind of woman wouldn't throw herself into his arms? Chapter 3672. You can search on Baidu for Charming Enchantress of the City, Heaven-Defying Baby's Black-Bellied Father Wonderful Brush Pavilion to find the latest chapter. He put down his pride and whispered to you intimately. That's because he thinks highly of you and of our Ning family. Don't be so petty. You clearly have feelings for young Lord Yin. Why do you have to throw a tantrum just because of a moment of anger? Let's go and apologize to young Master Yin, and this matter will be over. At this time, Ning Zhenya also cautiously interrupted. I remember that Yin once told Yuhua that if she wants to marry, she must marry a hero of indomitable spirit. As long as she can be with such a perfect man, even if she has to be a slave or a maid, she is willing. Now that young Master Yin is willing to marry Mayan as a concubine and is willing to take her to the Shoshin continent, Mayan must be ecstatic. Don't you think so? Hua Yuhua suddenly comes back to her senses and nods repeatedly. Yes, yes. To be taken to the Shoshin continent by young Master Yin and become the young master's favored concubine. This is a blessing that many people can't even ask for. Mayan must be a fool to refuse. Ning Fuxing looks at Yin Yuan with a smile and says respectfully, What do you think, young Master Yin? Yin Yuan snorts coldly and takes a deep look at Mayan, not saying anything. This clearly means that he doesn't object to Ning Fuxing's words. As long as Mayan is willing to apologize and admit her mistake, he is really willing to let go of what happened before. Enrich is amazed again and again. He didn't expect that the young master, who has such a bad temper and doesn't tolerate any disobedience, would be so easy to talk to in front of Mayan. Sure enough, is this the privilege of a stunning beauty? Ning Fuxing is wild with joy and looks at Ning Kunshan on the side. Then he says to Mayan, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and pour tea for young Master Een and apologize." Ning Kunshan says kindly, "Girl, do you remember the story I told you in the ice cave before? The Ning family can persist for so many years and still stand tall in the wind and rain. It is inseparable from the sacrifice of each and every Ning family member. You are also a member of the Ning family. Without the blood of the Ning family, you wouldn't be who you are today. It is time for you to make a contribution and sacrifice for the Ning family. What's more, being able to marry a talent like young Master Een can be considered a heavenly path. It's a beautiful path that your grandfather tried his best to find for you. No matter how you look at it, it's not a sacrifice, right? Don't be stubborn and go accompany young Master Een." Muyin feels that she really underestimates the Ning family skin. He recognized his granddaughter so that she could be someone else's concubine. He even said that the glory of the Ning family required everyone to make sacrifices and contributions. And everything we do is for your own good. Damn it, I don't have any. What does the Ning family's glory have to do with me? Could it be that his mother had also been forcefully brought back and then sacrificed by this group of sanctimonious beasts? Muyan's heart is ice cold with anger, but her face doesn't show it in the slightest. She just says with a faint smile, "I'm sorry. I've lived in the countryside and never understood what it means to take the overall situation into account and what it means to sacrifice for the family's glory. Since you like to sacrifice so much and like to curry favor with the young master of the netherworld, why don't you just rush to marry him? The Ning family's affairs have nothing to do with me. This kind of trash." She looks him up and down with undisguised contempt in her eyes. This kind of trash, let alone as a concubine, even if she's a wife, Jun Mayan, wouldn't like her. Presumptuous. Chapter 3673. You can search on Baidu for Enchantress Charming Doctor, Heaven-Defying Baby's Black-Bellied Father, Wonderbrush Pavilion. Find a latest chapter. This time, not only Enrich, but also Een Yuani's personal guard shouted. It seemed that as long as Een Yuani gave the order, this audacious girl's head would be cut off. Een Yuani didn't hide his ruthlessness at all. His eyes were burning with the flame of anger. He looked at Ning Fuxing and the others fiercely, and the corners of his mouth slowly curved, revealing a vicious smile. "I think your Ning family wants to be exterminated." Ning Fuxing's face changed dramatically. Even Ning Kunshan's eyelids twitched. Ning Fuxing shouted, "Evil creature, I am your grandfather. Marriage is decided by parents and matchmakers. Now that your parents are gone, I am your only elder. Whoever I want you to marry, you have to marry. Where's there any room for you to say no? Guards, capture this ungrateful girl for me and hand her over to young Lord Een to deal with." Yes, with a command, the Ning family, including Ning Jiangwen and Ning Jianwu, the two heaven-breaking state experts. The Ning family subordinates all rushed out and surrounded Muyan. Everyone in the Ning family had extremely high cultivation, and the servants were obviously trained. They cooperated with each other and had a tacit understanding. They were like a well-trained army. And under Muyan's feet, the Ning family's formation was shining brightly. The blood vein bell on her waist seemed to be unable to be sealed, making a buzzing sound and about to break free at any time. This was an inescapable trap, and there was no hope of escape. Muyan's face was solemn. Qiu and the others' anxious voices kept ringing in her ears. "Beautiful sister, what should we do? Can't we escape? Jun Muyan, let me out. Let me deal with them." Muyan gritted her teeth, her face cold and calm. "No, there are people from the Netherrealm here. Qi Huang, if you come out, you will be discovered." "Absolutely not." "Then what should we do?" Qi Huang was almost roaring. "Do you want her to watch you? The Golden Crow Fire Essence had originally been watching the show like a bystander. At this moment, it suddenly blinked and rushed out of the space. He clearly hated this woman who bound him and forced him to sign a contract. However, the pure fire attribute energy was delicious, although the dead rabbit and the stinky sword were annoying. But sometimes, when they played together in the amusement park, they seemed to have a good time. The Golden Crow Fire Essence thought. For some reason, it suddenly didn't want this woman to have a sad expression and didn't want her to die. Boom! The scorching sun rose in the underground palace. In an instant, half of the plants in the lush garden withered. Under the burning of the fireball, the crystals that illuminated the sky actually began to melt bit by bit. This is Golden Crow Fire Essence. The leader of Enchantress' guards exclaimed in disbelief. How can there be Golden Crow Fire Essence on the floating island? Enchantress also stood up and stared at the fireball in the air. The Golden Crow fire could not compare to his nether sacred flame. However, it was also a top spiritual fire that was hard to find in the world. How many alchemists and blacksmiths of the Xiaoxian continent yearned for this kind of god-level spiritual fire? But he didn't expect that a little female practitioner on the floating island could have Golden Crow Fire Essence. And this Golden Crow Fire Essence was actually willing to be used by her. Chapter 3674. You can search on Baidu for Charming Enchantress, Heaven-Defying Baby's Black-Bellied Father Wonderful Brush Pavilion to find the latest chapter. The ruthlessness in Enchantress' eyes turned into a little excitement and greedy desire. This woman really brought him more and more surprises. The guard leader beside him also whispered, "Young master, take this woman back to the nether realm. Maybe she will be of some benefit to you. If you can completely absorb the Golden Crow Fire Essence, your dark, unholy flame will certainly reach a higher level." Enchantress nodded, smiling complacently. I didn't expect that this young master's trip to the floating island would have such a harvest. Even the heavenly fate is on my side. But this woman doesn't know what's good for her. Let's wait for her to suffer a bit more in the hands of the Ning family. Then this young master will save her. At that time, she will know that obeying this young master is her only way out. The guard leader nodded, thinking that what the young master said was very right. So he quietly watched the battle from the side. But soon, the expressions of Enchantress and the guard leader changed again, because Mu Yin took out a zither. This was a zither that didn't seem to have anything special. The ink-black body of the zither flickered with a restrained and charming glow. However, when that pair of slender hands plucked the strings of the zither, the body of the zither immediately seemed to be plated with a layer of beautiful moonlight. Among them, 3 of the zither strings shone brightly and dazzlingly. The sound of the zither resounded. The Ning family's besieging subordinates all began to feel dizzy, their footsteps weak. Even Ning Zhongye and the other experts who had reached the earth-opening and sea-splitting realms. They also felt as if their bodies were bound, unable to move. As the sound of the zither became louder and louder, a figure that looked exactly like Mu Yin separated. One played the zither, the other held a sword. 7 transparent child swords sprang out from behind Mu Yin. They scattered around the Golden Crow Fire Essence. Flames curled around the 7 absolute child swords. In just a turn, they had already been plated with a layer of Golden Crow fire. The fire swords whistled as they flew out. Poochie, Poochie, they pierced through the chests of several people. These experts who had clearly reached the earth-opening realm didn't even have the slightest chance to resist, screaming and falling to the ground. Terrifying golden-red flames sprang up from their bodies, burning them into charred corpses in an instant. Apart from Ning Zhongbai, no one from the Ning family participated in the battle. As for the others below the sea-split stage, although they weren't pierced in the chest, they were still injured by the 7 Despair Master Sword. Golden Crow fire instantly attached to these wounds. It was only a small wound, but it would start a prairie fire. It would be too late to even use spiritual power to extinguish it. One of Ning Zhongye and Hua Yuhua's arms was directly burned off, and they could only fall to the ground and squeal like pigs being slaughtered. Even Ning Fuxing, Ning Jiangwen, and Ning Jianwu, the three top experts of the Breaking Heaven stage. Even with the assistance of Mu Yan's 7 absolute swords and the sound of the zither, he still couldn't do anything to a lone and delicate little girl. Ning Kunshin's originally relaxed brows furrowed little by little. After seeing the Ning family's other sea-splitting realm expert get injured by Mayan's sword, he finally could not hold it in any longer and slowly walked forward. At this time, the people of the Ning family didn't notice the expressions of Yin Yuani and the guard leader. The two of them looked at each other. They could see the shock and horror in each other's eyes. Yin Yuani murmured, "Tian Mo Chin. That's the Tian Mo Chin. So, this woman is a remnant of the Shun musicians." The guard leader also stared blankly for a long while before coming back to his senses. He nodded with difficulty. This subordinate had seen Bailey Inlu play the Tian Mo Chin from afar, displaying the Shun musician's consummate skill. This subordinate would not be mistaken. Chapter 3675. You can search on Baidu for the Enchantress of the City, Heaven-Defying Baby, Black-Bellied Father Wonderful Brush Pavilion, to find the latest chapter. That is indeed the Tian Mo Chin. This Jun Mayan is a Shun musician. As he says this, the guard leader himself feels that it's unbelievable. Even though the spirit bell has already rung 3 times in the Xioshin continent, even though the Nether Realm has long received the news that there might still be remnants of the Shun musicians still living in this world. But all this news is far less shocking than seeing the Shun musician with his own eyes. That's a Shun musician. Back then, she could move unhindered across the 3 realms, turning the entire Xioshin continent upside down. A Shun musician that almost became a supreme overlord. The horror in Yin Yuani's eyes is gradually replaced by a tempestuous wave of excitement and greed. Shun musician, this young master has actually found a Shun musician. As long as I bring this Shun musician back, as long as this Jun Mayan becomes this young master's woman, then what else would I have to fear in the Xioshin continent? The guard leader promptly says, "Young master, be careful with your words. The Shun musicians are the enemies of the entire Xioshin continent. Even in the Nether Realm, there are many people who change their expressions at the mention of the Shun musicians. If they knew," Yin Yuani waves his hand indifferently, sneering, "it's fine as long as they don't know. This woman will naturally be raised in a boudoir for this young master to enjoy. No one will know her identity as a Shun musician, and no one else will see her. She only needs to practice every day, then refine pills for this young master, study arrays, plan immortal medicines, and then accompany this young master to sleep. It's enough to give birth to the best heir for this young master. It's only a woman. So what if she's a Shun musician? To be able to realize such a great value is already her fortune." The guard leader sees that his thoughts are clear, and he promptly bows and flatters. Young master is wise. Young master is benevolent. If the remnants of the Shun musicians fall into the hands of others, they will undoubtedly die, and they will die extremely, miserably. Now that she has fallen into the hands of young master, it's really a blessing that she cultivated in her previous life. But this matter, even if it's Yen Liji, you must not tell him. Even if it's the Lord and the Queen of Hell, it's best to hide it from him. After all, the Shun musicians are too infamous for the entire Xioshin continent. Yin Yuani couldn't help laughing. Of course he wouldn't. He won't let anyone know that he's secretly hiding a Shun musician, treating her as his own exclusive property, to be trained and toyed with at will. But this didn't stop him from feeling pleased with himself. He had thought that he had only found a stunningly talented woman. Who knew that she had a golden crow fire essence by her side? He had thought that getting a beauty and a golden crow fire essence was already a blessing from the heavens. Unexpectedly, the one he found turned out to be a remnant of the Shun musicians. The Shun musician, whom everyone feared, was actually a plaything of Yin Yuani. Yuen couldn't control his excitement and complacency. At this time, the battle on the opposite side had reached its climax. Ning Kunshin's action is tantamount to completely cutting off Mayan's path of survival. Profound immortals and golden immortals were fundamentally different. Moreover, Ning Kunshin was an old monster who had lived for more than 2,000 years, even though he was only at the third stage of the mysterious immortal realm. However, the moment he made his move, Mu Yin was hit by a palm. He felt as if his internal organs were being stirred up by someone. Her whole body flew out, crashing into a Zue Wanfeng tree, and she violently spits out a mouthful of blood. The leaves of the black pine tree flutter down. Chapter 3676. You can search on Baidu for Charming Enchantress of Medicine, Heaven-Defying Baby, Black-Bellied Father Clever Brush Pavilion to find the latest chapter. Some fall at the girl's feet, and some fall on her hair. The pale complexion and the bright red dress make the girl's appearance even more captivating. Ning Kunshin slowly walks forward with his hands behind his back. There's still a gentle and kind smile on his face. It's like an old man helplessly looking at his disobedient little granddaughter. Girl, the old ancestor has clearly broken the reason into pieces, broken it, and clearly explained it to you. Why do you still persist in going about things the wrong way? The Ning family belongs to every one of us. Only when the Ning family is well and restored to its former glory can every descendant of the Ning family live a good life. Your mother didn't understand this reason back then, so why don't you understand it now? He gently shakes his head, his eyes full of resentment. Girl, you really let the old ancestor down. Mu Yan's pupils slightly contract. She wipes the blood from the corner of her mouth and sneers. Sure enough, didn't my mother elope with my father and leave the Ning family? Where is she now? Ning Kunshin smiles. Your mother was young and didn't understand reason back then. She was unwilling to sacrifice for the Ning family. But after the old ancestor had a heart-to-heart talk with her, she understood the responsibilities of the Ning family. The Ning family gave her birth and raised her, gave her the best life and the most generous resources, made her the young miss of the Ning family, and was respected by everyone outside. Since she enjoyed the Ning family's benefits, it's only right that she fulfill her responsibilities and obligations, and make sacrifices for the Ning family. Fortunately, the girl Yin Xin came to her senses and took the initiative to shoulder the responsibility for the Ning family. Girl, you see, even your mother later realized her mistake and turned over a new leaf. Why are you still persisting in going about things the wrong way? Marrying young Master Yin and serving him well is your way out, and also the Ning family's way out. Why do you want to disappoint everyone in the Ning family? Mu Yin is so angry that she wants to laugh at these shameless words. She looked at Ning Kunshin coldly and said expressionlessly, You said that my mother was raised by the Ning family, so she must repay the Ning family. But my surname is not Ning, and I have not received any kindness from the Ning family. What right do you have to make me sacrifice for the Ning family? Ning Kunshin's smile was even more gentle and kind. Therefore, did an elder ask your grandpa to pick you up in person and invite all the affiliated branches and sects of the Ning family to tell them that you are the real lady of the Ning family? Since you are already the young lady of the Ning family, it is only natural for you to make sacrifices for the Ning family. Hearing this, Mu Yin is simply stunned. What the hell? There was actually such a method of forcefully buying and selling. She would directly hold a family banquet and announce to the world that she was the young miss of the Ning family. So he owed the Ning family? Did he have to sacrifice himself for the Ning family? Such an invincible bandit logic. Such a shameless family. This is really the first time that Mayan has seen it. She slowly nodded and said, Very good. The selfishness and self-righteousness of the Ning family are indeed carved into their bones. It was no wonder that Ning Su himself behaved like a demon, but kept saying that he would exterminate all evil spirits. He completely did not care if others had any difficulties or if there were innocent creatures under the demon-slaying sword. It turns out that the Ning family were a bunch of selfish people, but they insisted on their own set of principles and felt that there was nothing wrong with them at all. Ning Kunshin narrowed his eyes. The kind smile on his face turned into a cold, murderous intent. Chapter 3677. Girl, it seems that you really don't want to come to your senses. Ning Kunshin gently shakes his head, sighing, then don't blame old ancestor for being too heavy-handed. You have to go to young Lord Yin's side, whether you want to or not. Since you don't want to be obedient, then old ancestor can only abolish your cultivation, then hand you over to young Lord Yin. Let him train you well. After saying that, he raises his hand, and his palm begins to gradually condense light. No! Ning Zhongbai yelled, throwing caution to the wind as he threw himself in front of Mayan. Old ancestor, I beg you, please don't. This is Yen'er's child, Yen'er's only child. He can't help but sob, tears streaming down his face. Hasn't Yen'er sacrificed enough for the whole Ning family? Why won't you let go of her only child? Father, father. Ning Zhongbai looks at Ning Fuxing, his face full of despair. Father, Yen'er is your most beloved child. Mu Yin is your granddaughter. How can you treat her like this? Ning Fuxing's face is expressionless, without a trace of pity or reluctance in his eyes. He still says indifferently, everything is for the Ning family's prosperity. Since she is a member of the Ning family, isn't it natural to make some sacrifices? She didn't grow up in the Ning family. Why should she sacrifice for the Ning family? Ning Zhongbai screams hysterically. Yen'er, already. I will never allow you to hurt Mu Yin, never. Ning Fuxing frowns, raising his hand and swinging it in the air. Ning Zhongbai immediately screams, rolling to the side. Impudent! Do you have the right to speak in front of old ancestor? Ning Zhongbai doesn't even have the time to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. He crawls in front of Ning Kunshin, kowtowing nonstop. Old ancestor, I beg you, please let Mu Yin go. I beg you to leave Yen'er's child a way out. I beg you. Mu Yin looks at the frail body in front of her, kowtowing again and again, just to save her niece whom she has only known for 2 days. Her heart suddenly feels indescribably sour. The Ning family isn't without good people. Her mother doesn't have any relatives who truly love her. At least, she still had an uncle in the Ning family. Mayan crouches down and forcibly helps Ning Zhongbai up. She softly says, second uncle, don't beg them anymore. If they listened, my mother wouldn't have ended up like this back then. Ning Zhongbai's entire body trembled, and the tears in his eyes flowed even more violently. He grabbed Mu Yan's hand and said with a trembling voice, Child, do you know everything? Your mother, she... Mu Yan's eyes turned cold. She didn't know how her mother, Ning Yanxin, was doing, but he could roughly guess it. He still remembered what Ning Kunshin had said when they were frozen. It was Ning Xianting who sacrificed himself that allowed the Ning clan to survive. Later on, more and more descendants of the Ning family were willing to sacrifice themselves to resist the curse left behind by the palace master of Magical Illusion Palace. At that time, Mu Yin only listened to it as a story and didn't think much about it. But now that he thought about it, were there really so many descendants of the Ning family who were willing to sacrifice their lives to maintain the glory of the Ning family? Could her mother, Ning Yanxin, be one of them? Mu Yin gazes at Ning Kunshin. At that time in the cave, she really thought that this was a compassionate, guilt-ridden, and grieving elder. Chapter 3678. Now it seems that the most disgusting, selfish, and sanctimonious person in the entire Ning family is this Ning Kunshin. Just like now. At least Ning Fuxing knows to be true to himself. But Ning Kunshin looks at the weeping and pleading Ning Zhongbai, and his cheeks are also streaming with tears. His eyes are full of struggle and reluctance. Looking at him, people feel that there's hope for their prayers to be fulfilled. But in reality, Ning Kunshin's turbid, tearful eyes look at Mayan, choking with sobs. Girl, do you see? It's all because of your stubbornness that your uncle is so upset, that the old ancestor has no choice but to be ruthless. Do you think that the old ancestor will be happy to abolish your cultivation? No, I'm not happy at all. My heart hurts like a knife. But I'm a Ning family's old ancestor. Everything I do is for the continuation of the Ning family's glory. As long as the Ning family can live better, as long as the Ning family can return to its former glory, even if I have to pay everything, I'm willing. Girl, why don't you understand? He says as he cries. His voice is hoarse and choked with sobs, as if it contains endless pain. But the spiritual power condensing on his right hand is increasing. His left hand slowly shakes, sealing off all of Mayin's escape routes. Even if the words coming out of his mouth are pleasant to hear, Ning Kunshin's determination to abolish Mayin's cultivation hasn't weakened in the slightest. Ning Zhongbai's complexion is deathly pale, his eyes already full of despair. He closes his eyes and hoarsely says, "Old ancestor, if you want to destroy Mayin, then kill me first. I couldn't save little sister that year. Today, I will never allow anyone to hurt Mayin." Ning Fuxing angrily says, "Unfilial son, come over here right now. Do you hear me?" Ning Zhongbai unwaveringly protects Mayin, turning a deaf ear. Ning Fuxing is about to restrain him. Ning Kunshin waves his hand. The tears in his eyes are even more turbulent. His face is full of sorrow and pain. "Forget it, Fuxing. Since this is the path they chose, then let them bear the consequences themselves." That year, Yin Xion's matter almost led to a catastrophe because of him. Now that he's still so resolute, it's better to fulfill his wish. The meaning of these words is that he doesn't intend to let Ning Fuxing pull Ning Zhongbai away. Instead, he wants to kill him first and then cripple Mayin's cultivation. For a moment, Mu Yin feels her blood rushing to her head. Killing intent filled every inch of her senses. It had been a long time since she had wanted to kill someone so badly. It had been a very, very long time since she had seen how shameless and disgusting a person could be, even if this person was related to her by blood. Mu Yin reached out to pull Ning Zhongbai behind her. Suddenly, a sword light whizzed over from the left, directly stabbing toward Ning Kunshin's temple. Ning Kunshin, however, was not the least bit flustered. Tears were still welling up in his eyes. With a casual wave of his hand, a loud bang could be heard. A figure was dragged down from the sky. Ning Yu fell to the ground, her face flat on the ground. But she didn't care how miserable and embarrassed she was. He leapt up from the ground and stood in front of Ning Zhongbai, shouting in a stern voice, "Who dares to hurt my father?" All of this happened in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint. When Ning Fuxing saw Ning Yu, his face fell, and he cried out, When did you come back?" Ning Yu gritted her teeth and glanced at everyone present. Chapter 3679. Ning Yu, why do you care when I came back? Luckily I came back. Otherwise, wouldn't I have to watch an old monster like you kill my father? Ning Fuxing's expression changed when he heard the words, "old monster." How dare you? How can you speak to the elder ancestor like that? Tui, Ning Yu sneered. He survived by feeding on the flesh and blood of his children and grandchildren. Was he if not a monster? Ning Kunshin's expression darkened. He looked at Ning Zhongbai reproachfully and shook his head, sighing, "Zhongbai, it's fine if you're not a righteous person, but how can you teach your daughter to be so disobedient, unfilial, and disloyal? Is this how you teach her to speak to her elders? Is this how you teach her to humiliate her own elder ancestor?" Ning Zhongbai's face flushed red. Although he had risked everything to stop Ning Kunshin just now, but deep down, he still saw Ning Kunshin and Ning Fuxing as his real elders. Putting the Ning clan first, being filial and sincere, this belief was carved into his bones. Hearing Ning Kunshin's rebuke, he was at a loss. He couldn't help but pull his daughter, whispering, "Don't be rude to the elder ancestor." Ning Yu's face was cold, and she didn't speak. Ning Zhongbai pulled her, "Ning Yu's eyes reddened. She bit her lower lip and suddenly sneered, Why should I respect an old monster who crippled my father's cultivation and caused him to be mocked in the Ning clan for the rest of his life? Why should I be filial and sincere to a selfish person who wanted to kill my cousin and my father? Ning Zhongbai was stunned and blurted out, "You are how? How do you know?" Ning Yu's tears finally fell. "I heard grandfather and father's conversation a long time ago. It was you who let aunt and uncle go, and then the elder ancestor almost beat you to death. It caused your cultivation to drop from sea-split realm to mysterious life realm, and from then on, you aged faster and could no longer walk under the sun. You treated them as your family, as your elders, but did they treat you as family? Is there such a thing as an animal in this world?" "Pa!" Ning Kunshin suddenly waved his palm. In the air, a palm-like force formed and slapped towards Ning Yu's face. But almost at the same time, the Tian Mo Chin sounds. An invisible barrier blocked Ning Yu's face. The slap shattered the sound wall created by the divine hand's weave, but it was also canceled out. Ning Yu was unharmed. Mu Yin slowly walked forward and gently patted Ning Zhongbai's shoulder. She softly said, "Second uncle, can you step back a little and go to the Black Wood to take a rest?" Ning Zhongbai hurriedly said, "Mu Yin, hurry and leave this place." Mu Yin smiled. Her eyebrows and eyes could topple a city, her smile like a flower, captivating and soul-stealing. "You can't. I came to the Ning family to find out the whereabouts of my parents. I haven't found out the truth yet, and I haven't gotten justice for my mother for the grievances she suffered in the past. How can I just leave like this?" Ning Zhongbai was startled. But you will be... I will seek justice for my mother. Second uncle's justice will be sought by Ning Yu. Today, we will settle accounts with these sanctimonious, selfish hypocrites of the Ning family. Second uncle, you only need to watch from the side. Chapter 3680. Hearing this, Ning Yu laughed loudly. "Mu Yin, you said it too well. Ha ha ha. I told you, you're the only one I like in the whole Ning family." As they spoke, the two were already leaning against each other. They were just two little girls who hadn't reached the heaven-breaking state, but facing Ning Kunshin, a third-level abstruse immortal, they didn't have the slightest bit of fear. Ning Kunshin's eyes were cold. The dense wrinkles on his face trembled slightly. Then he sighed. "Ning Yu, you forced the old ancestor to do this. Fuxing, I killed your only son and granddaughter. Will you blame me?" Ning Fuxing shook his head expressionlessly. "Why would I? Fuxing knows that everything the old ancestor did was for the Ning family. As long as the Ning family can prosper and the old ancestor can live well, anyone should pay any price." Mu Yin didn't react to Ning Fuxing's words. Ning Yu suddenly clenched the sword in her hand, and her body couldn't help trembling in anger. Ning Zhongbai's face was even paler, and his eyes were red. After Ning Fuxing said this, a mandarin duck crutch appeared in Ning Kunshin's hand. This crutch was thick and looked like a black crutch, but when Ning Kunshin injected spiritual power into it, the crutch immediately emitted a strong, murderous aura. It lightly touched the ground, and the hardest rock immediately cracked like a spider web. Ning Yu's face was pale, and she whispered to Mu Yin, "That's the old monster's Rakshasa Mandarin Duck Crutch, a superb divine king tool. I'll block her, and you just need to find a way to stall for time. Soon, your sweetheart will come to save you." Mu Yin was startled and looked at Ning Yu in surprise. How did Ning Yu know that she wanted to stall for time? And how did she know that Di Mingju would come to save her? In fact, with Mu Yan's current cultivation, Ning Yu and the other Ning family members, including the heaven-breaking state Ning Fuxing, Ning Jiangwen, and Ning Jianwu, could all contend against them. But against Ning Kunshin, it was extremely difficult. Basically, she didn't even have a 10% chance of winning. What's more, Yin Yune and the others were watching the fun from the sidelines. During the fight with Ning Fuxing and the others, Mu Yin could feel a greedy and excited gaze on her. Even though Yin Yune and the others didn't move, Mu Yin doesn't think that he would be kind enough to let her go. That was her only hope now. It was the little chick that had gone out to ask for help. The gates of the Ning family's bunker were tightly shut. Little Chick couldn't get out? That might not be the case. In terms of luck value, even Little Treasure couldn't compare to the Little Chick. As long as the Little Chick could find the people of the Falling Moon tribe, he would still have a chance of survival. While Mu Yin and Ning Yu have their own thoughts, Ning Kuanshan's attack has already arrived. The curling airwaves rolled along with the movement of the Rakshasa mandarin duck crutches in the air. Above the walking stick, the thing that looked like a mandarin duck or two ghostly faces suddenly began to spin violently. Ning Kunshan soared into the sky. The mandarin duck crutch floated in midair before striking out with a palm. Boom! The bluestone on the ground cracked open. Countless trees and grasses were swept up into the sky, forming a huge whirlpool that enveloped Mu Yin and Ning Yu. It's the Blood Sea Ghost Wave. Mu Yin, be careful. Don't get cut by the red blades in the hurricane, or else, Ning Yu had just reminded him. A red blade flew out of the hurricane and directly cut her arm. Ning Yu immediately grunted. Blood gushed out of the small wound like a fountain. Chapter 3681. The wounds caused by the Blood Ghost Blade will not heal until all the blood is drained. Ning Yu tried her best to finish this reminder. Then, disregarding his bleeding wound, he looked for an opening and attacked Ning Kunshan in the air without any hesitation. Ning Yu's sword light was already in front of him. Ning Kunshan sneered. He waved the walking stick in his hand. A dark purple light suddenly shot out from the ghost-faced mandarin duck on the walking stick, heading straight for Ning Yu. Watch out. Ning Zhongbai knew what was shot out from the Rakshasa mandarin duck crutch. It was the Ning family's unique poison that could take someone's life in an instant. Yama's Death Taker. No cultivator below the heaven-breaking state could block it. Ning Zhongbai knew his father and ancestor were cruel, but he had never imagined that they would be so heartless. Ning Zhongbai shouted and wanted to rush in front of his daughter. But he was only at the mysterious life state now. He couldn't participate in a battle of this level. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, the dark green light had already sprayed onto Ning Yu. Even her protective clothes made a sizzling sound after coming into contact with Yama's Death Taker. Then a hole was burned through. Ning Kunshan's eyes showed some pity. Then he shook his head and sighed. Ning Yu was the most promising among his grandchildren, other than Ning Su. Ning Su was too stubborn. Now that the soundless doppelganger was broken, it would sleep for at least 100 years. Ning Yu was supposed to be the Ning family junior that he valued the most. But Ning Yu didn't know what was good for her and didn't understand his good intentions. She was too disloyal and unfilial. She didn't know how to be grateful. He felt sad and reluctant to kill his own blood relative. However, he had no choice but to do so. Tears appeared in Ning Kunshan's eyes, as if he was extremely sad. But Yama's Death Taker had already burned Ning Yu's skin. The horrifying purplish color spread to her entire hand, and even her entire body. Ning Kunshan didn't have any intention of stopping her. Suddenly, Ning Kunshan's eyelid twitched. An ominous premonition suddenly welled up in his heart. Boom! A loud sound exploded in the air. The light from the golden crow, fireball, almost blinded people's eyes. Ning Fuxing's expression changed drastically. He stared at the figure that was burned to ashes in the air and let out a shrill scream. Ancestor! He suddenly turns to look at Mu Yin and Ning Yu. At this time, Mu Yin had already arrived at Ning Yu's side and was feeding her an antidote. No one on the floating island could dispel. Yama takes life. But that doesn't mean that Mayan can't solve it. Everything that had just happened was actually planned by her and Ning Yu. One of them was in the open and the other was in the dark, one attacking and one defending. With Ning Yu attracting Ning Kunshan's attention, Mu Yin launches the Shun musician skill, Heavy Phantom. Ning Kunshan thought that she was still trapped in the blood sea of ghostly waves. In reality, he had already secretly controlled the Golden Crow fire essence and attached it to the 7 Extinction Mother and Child Sword. He secretly launched a fatal attack on Ning Kunshan. Ning Fuxing's eyes were filled with anger and murderous intent as he looked at the two of them. How dare you kill our ancestor? Evil creatures! You are not worthy of being a descendant of the Ning family. I will kill you and clean up the house for the Ning family. Mu Yin sneered. That's why the old thing wants to kill us. We can't resist. We can only let him kill us. I have no interest in being a member of the Ning family. If you want to be one, go be one yourself. Chapter 3682. Ning Yu's face was also full of disdain. Grandfather, you have been with that old monster for so many years. Don't you understand his conduct? Do you think he will die so easily? Haha, Fuxing, don't panic. I'm fine. Ning Kunshin's voice came from behind Ning Fuxing. He lightly patted Ning Fuxing's shoulder, his voice gentle. These two girls really have some skill. I, the old ancestor, was careless and almost made a fool of myself. Fortunately, I used the shifting forms in the nick of time, so I was not burned by the golden crow fire. Ning Fuxing stilled, then heard an exclamation come from behind him. Husband, where did husband go? He was clearly here just now. The person who shouted was Ning Fuxing's concubine granddaughter-in-law. He immediately reacted. At the critical moment just now, Ning Kunshin had used the shifting forms to switch his position with his concubine grandchild, using the concubine grandchild's life in exchange for his own safety. Ning Fuxing, who learned of this news, was not angry, but gave a long sigh of relief. His eyes were filled with relief and joy. Fuxing knew that old ancestor would be fine. As for that concubine grandchild, he was just an ordinary person, unimportant. If he died, then he died. To be able to use his life in exchange for the old ancestor's life, in exchange for a prosperous future of the Ning family, it was a worthy death. Looking at the actions of the two, Mu Yin felt nauseous. Ning Yu's expression was icy, the last thread of warmth in her eyes replaced by disgust. Was this kind of family still a family? Was this kind of family still family? She suddenly grasped the hand of Ning Zhongbai, who had hurried over, saying resolutely, Father, let's leave the Ning family. Ning Zhongbai stilled, dazedly looking at her. Ning Yu looked at him with a determined gaze, her entire body seeming to give off a dazzling light. Father, if you cannot see the sun, we will find a place to build a small bunker. Don't let it be as empty as an ancient tomb, just small enough for a few people to live in. In the future, when we find a son-in-law, I will give birth to some children for you to play with. At that time, we will build a new family, and you will never be lonely again. Mu Yin smiled. Why find a new place to build a bunker? Why don't we go to my Xiaoyao city? We can look after each other as a family. Also, I might have a way to solve second uncle's problem of not being able to see the sun for a long time. Hearing this, Ningyu was pleasantly surprised. Mayan, is this true? Mayan nods, but she doesn't say much on this occasion, as long as it was related to the curse. Up until now, she had never seen anyone who knew more than her third senior brother. Although he didn't reveal himself and didn't explain why he knew so much about curses, he didn't reveal anything. But Mayan had never doubted that third senior brother would never harm her. As for second uncle's condition, as long as he brought him back and asked third senior brother for help, he would definitely be able to resolve it. The smile on Ningyu's face became even more excited and expectant. She held Ning Zhongbai's hand tightly and said in a trembling voice, Father, did you hear that? In the future, you'll be able to walk under the sun, and you won't need to be locked up in a graveyard like the Ning family. After today's matter, let's leave the Ning family together and never come back, okay? Ning Zhongbai's eyes gradually lit up with hope. The corners of his mouth curled up unconsciously. Even if he was just imagining it, he felt that the future described by his daughter and niece was so beautiful. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.